It's the Freakacast, talking video games and Lego. It's the Freakacast, cartoons and superheroes. With Andrew the Idea Man and Matt the Builder, we're gonna make a show that's killer. Freaks in, freaks out.
Bună seara și bine ați venit la Freakacast.
Greetings, true believers.
Excelsior!
Yay! And we're back with the Freakacast.
I am Andrew Felson.
And I'm Matthew Puetz.
And once again, sitting in.
Marcus Sene.
Sorry to cut you off there, dude.
It's alright.
Didn't mean to.
Yeah, so we're back with part 2. First part, we kind of talked about the origins of Spider-Man and how we all got into the whole Spider-Man story, what we like about the character. Kind of went off topic on the first one, so here we are.
That's okay, we had fun. And before we get too on topic, as we sometimes would like to do, we have to get the boring stuff out of the way, such as, if you want to find us on the web, afelson1.wordpress.com. That's afelson1.wordpress.com. Also look us up on iTunes, either under Andrew's Brain or the Freakacast. Both those searches will get us.
And don't forget to look for us under Freakout Entertainment on Facebook. You can like us there and check out pictures we post and videos we post and links that we post, any stuff pertaining to the Freakacast or anything we like for that matter.
Yep, and since we're on the topic of superheroes, you'll definitely want to plug superherohype.com.
Yes, where you can find any superhero news related to any upcoming movies. Not so much in the comic book end of things, but more on the movie front.
And of course, Batman on Film, just because Matt likes Batman.
Well, and they have all the news you need for Batman. Superhero Hype usually, sometimes we'll find stuff after Batman on Film finds it, but for the most part, just go to batmanonfilm.com.
And we have songs to wear pants.com, once again for the awesome, awesome theme song, which I can't get enough of, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. It's become one of my favorite theme songs. I wish we had a TV show sometimes.
I know. One of these days, we're going to film that.
We will.
And it'll be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Marcus, do you have anything you want to plug, since we're plugging stuff? Any sites you'd like to go to? Anything of that nature? I know I'm putting you on the spot now, but...
I noticed that IGN also does a very good job at pointing out some of the new stuff about the movies.
Okay.
Like, that's how I found out about the new screenshots for the new Spider-Man movie. Some of the shots of the shoot. Some of the shots of the suit.
On the scoot?
Yeah.
Oh, we have
some of the suits of the shot.
Scooters? Like, so we doing the... what were they? Like the Kmart version of the Transformers? What were those? The GoBots?
The GoBots. Oh, I remember those.
That would be an interesting movie, wouldn't it? Because that would just be a sad, sad attempt. It's like, hey, we're ripping it off.
We might actually exist. I wouldn't be surprised.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised either if someone was
someone did it as a comedy, at least. That would be worthwhile.
I suppose. So IGN.com. Makes sense to me.
Yep.
All right, so let's get on swinging.
Yay!
Web slinging, that is. What do you want to talk about first?
Yes, not to be confused with mudslinging.
I was going to touch up on the first couple of transitions in Spider-Man where they moved on from the comic to trying to have like a show.
Okay.
They started trying that out in '67, and it was on ABC. It ran from '67 to the '70s.
Now, was this live action or cartoon?
It was actually cartoon, and they had a lot of... He wouldn't actually talk. He would actually have the bubbles show up above his head.
Oh, neat.
So I guess they tried to transition it really directly.
Now, is this the show that got the theme song that we all know and love, or is that a later show?
I think that showed up later on. I think that showed up in '77, if I remember correctly.
Okay, but still, I mean, you said '67 this cartoon came out?
Yeah.
That's not that long after he was created. That was pretty fast. Since he was created in 62.
Yeah, so like you said, the popularity of it just skyrocketed because, people could just relate to this character that was a teenager with problems and fitting in at high school, and people felt like they could relate to him because he didn't necessarily had to be an American, or he had to be white. He could have been Asian or black or, what have you.
Although I will say that we didn't really touch upon this much in the last one, but I guess in terms of transitioning it from another medium, the nice thing about Spider-Man is the fact that he's also very visually interesting because he is swinging around high in the air. He's doing a lot of acrobatic things. Plus, like he's interesting to look at. His villains, for the most part, are interesting to look at. So probably going from comic books to TV would probably be an easier transition, I should say, than others, I would think.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially since he's very a character based on movement.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other characters like Batman who look good standing still. I mean, it's true. And you look at a lot of comics, especially Batman comics. The character looks good standing still, whereas Spider-Man looks good when he's in a certain pose. He's got to be showing movement of somehow for him to look good. Spider-Man standing still is not as visually interesting because the character doesn't stand still a lot.
It's true. You really see pictures of him just standing there. It's usually some kind of pose where he's hanging upside down like he does.
Hanging upside down or doing like a sprawl or something.
So that's pretty cool.
So
Yep. But yeah, the 67 series, that didn't go on for too long because they were really low on budget and they ended up using a lot of footage that wasn't even from their series.
Oh. Okay.
So if you've seen like a low budget sort of thing where they keep reusing footage.
Oh, I've seen enough of
Yeah,
that.
you can kind of picture that now that I mention it.
Wow.
It's not like Muppet Babies where they have a cartoon and then they show stock footage of like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like that.
I could picture that.
That'd be interesting.
I did not realize that Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was a movie. I remember the cartoon. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I know. I remember that cartoon. It's one of the things.
And then when I found out it was a live action movie, I'm like, really?
There's two of them actually.
I know. I was like, they actually made movies about this before the cartoon. Okay, that's kind of weird.
Yeah,
So I thought it was just created as a cartoon because it was silly but fun. But no, it was actually a movie, and I'm like, wow, that's sad.
So what happened after this stock footage filled Spider-Man?
They started having him as a guest on a children's show called The Electric Company. And what this was I'm not sure how they pulled this off, but it was a combination of animation and live action. And they actually kept a bubble above his head. I guess that was the animated
I do recall
part.
seeing something on that. The only reason that the Electric Company is noted for anything is also because that's where Morgan Freeman got his start.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know
But I remember watching something about him or something a while back, and that was on there. But I do remember them mentioning that Spider-Man was a guest on the Electric Company. So, and that was the first live action appearance of Spider-Man.
I'm not familiar with this Electric Company. I'll have to look
It's
this
a
up.
very old show.
Oh well, okay.
Before our time.
I'm assuming so.
So I can't really picture how they did the transition between animation and live action, unless it was as bad as the Iron Man one. Again, I got
as long as it wasn't as bad as the Kirk Allen Superman.
I was just gonna say, I learned from Matt the other day where they had a complete live action Superman except when he flew. Then it became a cartoon. So maybe it was like if Spider-Man's swinging into the set, it's a cartoon, but when he's actually on set, he's live action. Maybe it's something like that.
Yeah.
That would kinda make
either
sense.
way, I imagine the animation wasn't much. So I'm guessing there was like a really big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, people could just tell without a problem. But yeah, that also went on for a few years. Same thing. They kept the little bubbles above his head so that the audience could read, and that kind of made him more well known. Then that gave him a chance to go on with a full out live action one in '77, and that's that's what most people know when they refer to it, because that one had actually good ratings. But
Yeah, I've seen some of the clips of that show. It doesn't, for the time, it didn't look that bad.
yeah,
Obviously, by today's standards, it's pretty bad. But at the time, it was at least decent.
but what they did is for some reason, even though it was doing well and it had good ratings, same thing, low budget. I guess people weren't into the whole superhero thing at the time.
I think the other thing is because especially with a character like Spider-Man, you really have to have a good budget and a good level of special effects to portray his powers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that the newer movies did really well is because, especially the web slinging, we never saw that live action. It was just too difficult to do, especially with safety and everything.
As they're having problems with the play, which we'll mention.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get to that.
But from what I know, a lot of fans complain about this series because, like I said, it was low budget, the writing was poor, and the scenarios that he was in didn't really fit his character. So
Okay.
I'm guessing probably none of the villains showed up.
Probably not.
I can't speak for the series since it was years before I was born, but
Yeah.
and I can't imagine that we can just find this on YouTube.
Actually, you can. That's where I've been able to see the clips.
That's where you saw it?
Yeah.
That should be interesting to see.
There's just little clips. It was like the intro.
Yeah, no,
think,
that's
or
usually what
something.
you find, yeah.
All right, so what's next for old Spider-Man? For the webhead,
Old
as we say.
Spider-Man?
I said, OL.
Oh, okay.
This is something that not a lot of people might know, but the Spider-Man series that they had in Japan, or the Tokusatsu series, as people might know it by the Japanese name. Hope I pronounced that right.
It's okay.
What it was,
It's all right.
Sounds like you'd have better pronunciation than us, so.
Yeah.
What they did with this one is they basically tried to mix Spider-Man and Power Rangers, so you had giant robots and vehicles. It wasn't related to the comic at all. It was basically just basically another robot dressed up and
Did the robot at least look like a spider robot?
I don't
To
think
be honest,
so.
I haven't seen a picture of it.
The thing is, I've seen bits and pieces of this, and it's literally like Spider-Man, and he's sometimes riding on a motorcycle, and you're like, huh? And he kind of looks ninja-like, which is somewhat appealing because, like, okay, if Spider-Man was in Japan rather than here, it might make sense for him to have that more of a garb because that might be more of his culture set.
Yeah.
Like just what
Plus,
he would,
ninjas are cool.
Plus ninjas are cool, and it makes sense if Spider-Man was of anything, he would be a ninja.
Yeah.
But, the fact that at one point he does summon a giant robot that has nothing to do with spiders at all kind of throws you out of it. Plus, it just looked weird. It just
It's a
looked
shame
weird.
it wasn't a giant spider.
I know. They don't do
I
it.
wouldn't have watched that.
Well, no, it was a spider. No, I'm thinking about the Kevin Smith thing with Superman. If it had been a giant spider, at least in the back I would have fought a giant spider.
Of course, then it's sort of like, from what I always remember, like from the bits and pieces I see, it's sort of like, why is he needing a giant robot? He's fighting like bad dock workers.
Yeah.
Why would you need a robot? You're doing more damage than good, Spider-Man.
Then it becomes Spider-Man fights the insurance company.
Spider-Man walks in and just destroys half the city just walking to the place.
It's like, sorry,
I can
my
see
bad.
that.
Sorry, excuse me. Trying to save the day. Sorry. Ooh, missed it. Car. Oh. Spider sense not tingling now. Oh, man.
He steps on Jada Jameson's car. Sorry about that. Take it out of my pay.
What do you mean?
Spider-Man!
What do you mean by that? Nothing.
Like I,
Carry
said, I can definitely picture that. I don't know how you would have the huge robots, but
I don't know. That kind of throws it out. Anyway, what's
they
next?
tried in a different medium.
That's true.
Afterwards, 81, they tried to. This is when they first started doing the full animated thing.
Okay.
I mean, of course, animation was a bit clumsy. It was a little show on NBC. It didn't run for a very long time, but what happened is this was what gave NBC the idea to have their own Spider-Man show, their own Spider-Man cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is basically when the medium kind of expanded, and you had Spider-Man and his amazing friends, where you meet some of the X-Men characters. So I guess they started trying to introduce people to the Marvel universe pretty early.
Okay. Well, which show had the theme song that we know?
The only mention that I see of it is actually in the first one, 67. It just says that it's remembered for the theme song. It doesn't say if it's the one that everyone
It has
knows.
to be the theme. It has to be the one.
They don't have to be that one because I had a comment on that one because I've seen bits and pieces of it. Although I don't remember the thought balloon part, so maybe I'm mixing them up. But
Yeah.
that show is remembered for both the theme song, which I'm sure you've heard now.
I actually have it at home. I have. Sorry to cut you off.
That's okay.
I got a gift. It was a few years ago. It's like a building with like a clock on it and Spider-Man on top.
Oh,
and
nice.
If you press the button, it's the
Does the
Spider-Man
theme song.
Nice.
That's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, they put the theme song on when the first movie came out. They had the album for that. They put the theme song on there.
Well, it stood the test of time. I mean, it's one of those things where we can look at like the old Batman live-action series and say, yeah, it was hokey and weird, but the theme song rocked.
Yeah. It's catchy. It's memorable. It
Catchy,
sticks with
it
you.
is. Yeah.
But what I was going to say was like it's remembered for its theme song and how strange and out there and dumb this show was. Because there's certain points where like, okay, they're not paying attention because Spider-Man is web-slinging over the ocean. How is he doing that? What exactly is he latching onto?
Clouds.
The moon.
The moon.
It's pretty serious web slinging if you're hitting the moon.
And I've seen some images of some of the things he's doing, and it's like so wacky and weird. It's somewhat charming to see how bad it is. It's kind of how like I feel about the Super Friends, where it's bad, but sometimes it has a charm to it. It's like this is watchable bad.
Yeah.
Where I can laugh.
So bad it's funny.
Yeah, I can enjoy this and laugh.
Yeah.
And it has an awesome theme song, so can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I guess the theme song is from '67. So the first one that they did, I would have expected it to be the '77 one. Because that's the only one that actually had good ratings at that time.
Well, maybe they used the same.
They might have used. They might have
They
reused
probably
it.
transitioned, then that's yeah.
I mean, if that's theme song's been around for a while, it had to have been used multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, especially for it to stick with popular culture for so long and be covered by different bands. Like I know Aerosmith did a cover.
Yeah, they did a cover for the album.
For the album, the Ramones have done a cover. And there's one other person who's covered it. I forget who. I'll look it up later on. But it's been covered and it's still with us. And plus, it was present in the actual movies where it was just brought up. So I mean, it was a nice homage because obviously, clearly, the people who made it were fans.
Yep.
To some degree.
So you basically had a few different attempts to have a Spider-Man series. At first partially animated, then fully animated, and that showed enough promise that finally moved on to the 1994
Which you both
cartoon one.
know and love.
Yeah, I mean that's the most well-known one as far as I know, and the one that ran for the longest time. I mean, he had 65 episodes.
Yeah.
Which is 5 seasons.
5 seasons.
That's usually a good length for a cartoon show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the Disney ones we talked about had that length.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah,
interesting thing about that one, though, is that theme song I knew before the theme song from the 60s show.
Mm-hmm.
And so, quite honestly, I didn't even know about the theme from the 60s show until the movie came out.
Well, you were sheltered.
Well, I was. But, keep in mind, Spider-Man was he was one of the few Marvel characters I even knew about until the movies came, until recently when they started making more movies. Like, I didn't know about Iron Man or Thor. I mean, those two guys I had no clue on.
It's true. I mean,
Until the movies came out. So
one thing I failed to mention last time was one of the things I did with my dad when I was growing up was we used to collect Marvel cards. And so I didn't have a lot of X-Men comics or Avengers comics, or I didn't have any Iron Man comics. But I used to had a broad range of knowledge of some of these characters just from the collection of cards, and we did it for several years.
yeah.
And they even had one series based just on Spider-Man, and that was my favorite one. So, I mean, I kept up with it in that way more than the comics itself. So that's why I can never say I'm a true comic collector or fan, but I'm always a fan of it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I do remember fondly of just going out, and my dad, when I would just like buy a box of the cards and spend an evening opening them and sorting them out and seeing who can get the most holograms or who can find Spider-Man first. So it was a fun time.
I was kind of stuck in Gotham, so I had a hard time branching out.
Gotham and Metropolis.
Well, Metropolis, yeah, but mostly Gotham.
Mostly Gotham.
So,
But yeah, I mean, I think we have a good bit. I mean, we said a good bit about the 1994 series in the last one, but I think you guys probably have a lot more to say, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've watched possibly the entire series, all 65 episodes. Some episodes a bunch of times.
I'm in the process of watching.
I started
the
rewatching
episodes.
it too. Yeah,
So,
I'm almost done with season 1. It's interesting to see how the animation is holding up after all these years.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually still happy with it.
I am too.
it's
It's one thing I was quite surprised on. One thing I thought was really neat was how, especially when they get in some of the web slinging sections of it, where the city itself, the buildings are in 3D animation, whereas the characters are still in 2D. And I recall that being the first show that I remember seeing where they were starting to use 3D animation on a regular basis. I mean, granted, 3D animation was done well in movies at the time, at least for what they could do on the budgets, and they didn't use it a lot, but what they did, they tried to make it as good as possible. So seeing 3D animation used in a television program on a regular basis was pretty novel at the time.
And they incorporated it really well. I mean, some of the explosions and stuff like that, they used it. It didn't look so out of place.
Yeah.
So that's, I'll give them props for that. Since this was still aimed at a pretty young age, this was aimed at a pretty young age, so you actually don't get to see any blood or anything like that, and they never actually use words like kill or murder or anything like that. Like
the other thing I want to point out that I found rather odd when I saw the show was...
When you saw the show? Saw the show?
That is what you said.
When I saw the show. Was, keep in mind, I had been watching Batman the Animated Series for years prior to this, back in starting in 92. Well, they used bullets in Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
You get into Spider-Man, they don't have bullets, they have laser guns.
Yep.
Because this was aimed at a young audience. So it was very strange to me as to why, it's like, why are you using lasers? Is this in the future? I had a hard time trying to figure out the period of which this was taking place.
Well, to be fair,
see why.
Well, the thing is, because it had such this futuristic feel to it, it was hard for me to accept Spider-Man as taking place in the real world. It felt more like a futuristic story, like it was science fiction, not, this character existing in my current time period. With Batman, it was easier to accept. It still existed in its own period because it had that 1930s look with the Art Deco and everything, but they still had bullets, so it was a little more real. But with Spider-Man, I enjoyed it, and it was even more of an escapist because I'm sitting here watching this show and thinking, oh, this is, it didn't feel like New York City. It didn't feel like a real city, so it's harder for me to feel like this is anything real. It was completely fantastical to me. Now, that's not a complaint. That's just an observation.
Yeah.
And to be fair, some of the villains' weaponry kind of lends itself to that. Like, the Shocker is definitely, I wouldn't say futuristic, but it's definitely above bullets and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
But, it is still, like, early 90s, they were still kind of struggling with, like, how to handle that sort of thing. Like, they were still coming out of being overly censored.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, I think at that point there was still no blood allowed on cartoons. Like, they got away with it once.
Yeah.
In Batman.
They got away with it once on the first
again.
episode, never again. But I'm just saying, I guess it surprised me that because they were able to use bullets in Batman the Animated Series, which started 2 years prior to Spider-Man, why they would not allow bullets in Spider-Man.
I guess
that one kind of baffled me.
I guess because most of his villains didn't really use bullets. Most of them didn't really have guns.
True.
I think from what I recall, like I think if you looked at like a police officer running on duty, he might be holding a gun.
Oh yeah, they had guns,
never firing it.
Yeah, but they were laser guns.
Well, that's the thing I don't remember. I don't think the guns they had lasers.
Yeah,
that I don't remember.
The police had laser guns.
They had a Punisher show in though, and he had actual guns.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay. I vaguely remember Punisher, but not that much.
He mostly that was when Morbius.
But I don't like Punisher, so.
I wasn't too crazy about the character either. Sorry if you guys,
No, I'm sorry.
Fans,
but like I've seen the Tom Jane version of Punisher. That one was okay. From what I understand, the newer movie Punisher Warzone was as close to the comics as you can get, and I'm sorry, but I cannot get behind and appreciate a hero who kills. That goes against every reason why I like Batman.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the anti-Batman. It's like, Batman, I want you to take him down. It's like, to me, this is not a hero, it's a villain. So I do not like Punisher for that reason.
He's never been one of my favorites either. I did like the first movie that came out. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, it was well done. It was
enjoyable.
Decent.
I never saw Warzone, so I can't really comment.
So.
Mm-hmm. But even though he showed up in the series and he did have an actual gun with bullets, as far as I remember, he would mostly use like
rockets.
Yeah, like rockets.
Or probably like stun grenades and stuff like that.
Which one would blow up? It'd be just like a lot of smoke.
Right.
Or he would just shoot nets at Morbius, that sort of thing.
I think he was around also for the Man-Spider bit, because I remember
He showed up for a little bit, yeah.
Because I remember he and Kraven were hunting the Man-Spider at one point.
Yeah, and it was hard to keep
Yeah.
Punisher from obviously, killing the Man-Spider. But yeah, like I said, they censored out some of the stuff. Like there's a part where Spider-Man's fighting, can't remember if it's the Hobgoblin or Green Goblin.
Okay.
He says, "Hey, wait, I thought you were," and the guy cuts him off. He says, "But I'm not." So
I get you,
some of
so-
the stuff they could see themselves not having a way to go around it, so they just heavily hint it. Like even Uncle Ben, they don't say he got killed or he died. They would say he got caught in the crossfire.
Like, oh, I wish he was here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, if it's aimed at little kids, there is, I guess, so much they can do without going overboard. I mean,
But that doesn't mean that you have to dumb it down too much either.
true. I mean, if they had the action going for it,
Yeah.
and that was people can relate to. They just wanted to tone it down enough so that, okay, we want to make sure that little kids can watch it, but we don't want to do it too much so we don't lose our older audiences.
Right. And I think it did a really good job. As I'm watching it, it's like you were saying, Marcus, not only does the animation hold up, but the writing holds up.
For the most part.
Well, considering what the show is. I mean,
Yes.
it incorporates so many elements. You can't... It's not as linear storytelling as most of them are because...
Of course.
it incorporates these other characters and that sort of thing. The funniest thing, though, is that voice was stuck in me for so long. The guy that does the voice of Peter Parker. I don't know his name, unfortunately. But if you've seen any of the Brady Bunch movies, it's the same guy who plays Greg Brady, the older brother.
Christopher Daniel Barnes. There you go.
Thank you.
There you
You're
go.
welcome.
You know why his voice is also ingrained in my memory?
Why?
Is because when that show was out, they did a pretty good job of merchandising things. One reason I was really loving the show, even though I don't remember much of it,
Yeah.
is they actually made really good action figures, which I had wanted for so long.
They did actually make some pretty cool action
And
figures.
the thing was, like, before that show came out, there were 2 Spider-Man figures that I knew of. One that was posable, which was kind of cool,
Yeah.
and the other had a suction cup that you stuck on a wall, and that was kind of it.
Gee, which one would I pick? Suction cup.
And that was kind of all you had. And so when they finally came out with the ones that were based off the cartoon, they had one that shot a web.
Yeah.
You had one that was in a black suit and it had a thing that came out of his chest and he would crawl up it.
Oh, cool.
They had one where he had...
That sounds kind of like the Batman with the belt that would come up and he...
Yeah,
like the
pretty
line.
much exactly the same mechanism, except it was supposed to be like the alien suit coming out and using it.
Okay, that sounds kind of cool.
And they had others that incorporated different things you could do with the webbing. And I love those action figures and stuff, but the thing that makes the voice stick to me in my mind is the fact that they came out with 2 computer-based games based on Spider-Man and the X-Men.
Oh, nice.
It was called the Cartoon Makers. And I had Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. And the person who voiced Spider-Man and Peter Parker in the cartoon also did the voicing for everything in the game.
So
Which I still have, by the way.
Game, is it so that you can make your own Spider-Man cartoons?
Yes.
Cool.
I mean, it's
Obviously, it's limited.
It's limited. I
but-
mean, it's more like make your own moving comic book.
Yeah.
But you
That's
have
still pretty cool.
Yeah, you have a basic background, and you have characters that you can select from, different ranges of Spider-Man, and a couple villains, and some supporting characters. And what you could do is you can put them on the screen, and they would move, or they would have some certain speech, and you can move them across the screen as you wish, and you can put up speech balloons and things of that nature, and you can play it back, and it would do exactly as you did as you're setting it up. So
Now
you could watch your cartoon and comic book come
Are
to
there
life.
certain phrases you pick from, or can you type in what you want them to say?
No, they basically they repeat the same thing.
Okay.
Over and over.
So
But
you have the stock sayings and that sort of thing.
you have stock sayings, but
Which makes
that's-
sense. I mean, it's...
But that's the benefit
Yeah,
of having the word balloons.
Right.
And so, but the nice thing was, both the X-Men one and the Spider-Man one came with some pre-made cartoons that people did voice work for and pre-animated for you, so you could watch and see what kind of stuff you could do.
Okay.
And those were fun to watch. And the really cool thing about them, which makes me regret not getting the X-Men one, was that you can combine the two.
Oh, nice.
So that the whole cast of the Spider-Man cartoon maker can now interact with the entire cast and effects and stuff and maps and all that stuff from the
X-Men.
X-Men one.
That's
So
pretty cool.
you could have this gigantic mashup of all these characters and really have fun with it.
Yeah. That sounds pretty cool.
It is fun. I mean, I still have the game. It doesn't on
What
my
was it?
computer nearly as well.
What was it for? Oh, PC? Okay.
It's for PC. But it's still pretty fun.
I was going to say the first game that I played as Spider-Man would have to be Spider-Man in the Insidious 6.
Oh, on the
NES.
Nintendo? Yeah,
Yeah.
I had that one too.
Man, I played that one so much. I still remember this one place in second level where if you fall down, there'd be no way to get out.
Oh, man.
I got through the first level with, I think, Electro.
That's Electro, yeah.
And then I
The second
got
one
into
is
the second one with Sandman, and I
Yeah.
couldn't get out of that, so I just kind of got bored and stopped.
You probably found the same spot.
This game you're
And then I
mentioning,
also have a game for, a Spider-Man game for the Game Boy.
Okay,
Which I
I mean,
played.
never had a Game Boy.
That was kind
so-
of cool, so.
the game you're mentioning is covered at great lengths by the Angry Video Game Nerd, which you can find online.
Is it
It's quite funny.
because it's good or bad, or?
Oh, because it's bad.
Oh.
I was happy with it, actually.
I didn't have a problem with it.
The
But
only-
then again, I'm not a gamer, so I'm not
Yeah.
the kind of person that...
The only Spider-Man game I have, other than the PC one that I talked about, is the Maximum Carnage game. It's like Spider-Man and Venom versus Carnage. And it's pretty cool. It's a lot better than the ones that we were briefly talking about. But the one that I hold near and dear to my heart, which I could probably never find again, is they had a standing arcade Spider-Man game. Like how they used to have like the Ninja Turtle game. Or
Yeah.
for some people, remember like the Simpsons game or the X-Men game in arcade form.
Okay.
By the way, the Ninja Turtle game and the X-Men game are both available on the Xbox Live,
Yay.
so which I intend to download eventually because those were really fun. And they
Yeah.
made a Spider-Man one in the same vein, and that was also a lot of fun. I remember wasting a lot of money because it was a lot. I mean, I'm saying this a lot, but it was a ton of fun. I wish they released it again.
I've played that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had, let's see.
and it was like people can play at a time.
Yeah, it was 4 players. You had Spider-Man.
Makes me wish I had an arcade near my house growing up.
Yeah.
You had Spider-Man, Black Cat. What's his name? Namor the Mariner.
I think so.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Marvel's
Namor the
version of
Mariner.
Aquaman.
And
much, yeah.
there was one more character. It was actually pretty good.
Was it the Prowler? I can't remember the fourth.
Prowler.
I couldn't remember the third, to be honest with you.
No,
I just
Hawkeye.
remember-
I think it was Hawkeye.
Was Hawkeye?
Yeah. Now I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, so you had those 4 to choose from, and some were faster, some were a bit slower. Yeah, it's like Andrew said. It was a lot like the X-Men one if you've played it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're walking down the street, and then the camera would zoom in or zoom out.
Yeah. I remember
you
that. 'Cause, like the
yeah.
first level is like you zoomed in. It's like you're bailing people on the street.
Yeah.
But the second level you have to scale up a building, so it zooms out and you get like a scaling mode.
Yeah, because what happens is you fight Venom, and just as he's about to be defeated,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason he turns giant, and he's going up
Yeah.
the building.
He climbs up a building.
Yeah.
You got to chase after him.
You have to follow him. Yeah, yeah, I've played that. That was a fun game.
I wish they would release that.
I wish they would too. Maybe Xbox will, since they're doing X-Men. I mean, I think this would be the next logical move.
That'd be awesome. That's kind of my only experience with the video game ones.
Well, as far as video games, I've played Spider-Man 1 and 2 for PlayStation 2. I played the third one for the PlayStation 3. I was actually very
These were
happy.
the games based on the films?
They were, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I have the first one now that I think about it. I haven't played it forever.
Yeah. I remember it was, it was okay. It's just
I did
that-
not like the fact that in the first one, because my brother actually had that or rented it, that if you fell, you could not go onto the street level.
Yeah, you couldn't.
And I was like, that's stupid.
You were.
And what
stuck.
really bothered me about it is, like you said, Spider-Man over the ocean, you could go anywhere and he would just shoot the web in the same
Yeah.
spot every single time, grappling onto nothing, but you would still get a full swing,
I'm telling you, it's those clouds, man.
Yeah.
But what was cool was Bruce Campbell was narrating the tutorials,
Oh, that's cool.
and he was really
The voice-
funny throughout the entire
The
thing.
voice stuff was good. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I rented the stuff. I didn't buy it. I didn't feel it was good enough to buy.
Yeah.
But I still had fun going through, all 3 of the games, even though you were just basically going through the movie again. The one that I really like is, I don't know if a lot of people like this one, but what they did is they try to have a different take on a superhero game, since Batman Arkham Asylum did so well.
Yeah.
And some of you guys might have played that. I know Andrew did.
Yeah, I
and
did.
he enjoyed it. That's actually where they introduced Spider-Man Noir, a new universe.
Oh, yeah,
of
with the
Spider-Man.
Shattered Dimensions.
Yeah.
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 So you had, classic Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, and Spider-Man Noir. And
Yeah.
you basically play like a level of each. And,
Which I think is kind of a cool idea.
Oh, I mean, all the villains were just, heavy hitters, and it was very fun. It was
Who did
very
they
well
use
done.
for the noir?
For the noir, you fought Hammerhead and the Vulture.
Okay.
That makes sense to me because Hammerhead definitely fits into that
Yeah.
that genre.
He's already kind of got that
No, it
gangster
was
look to
it
him
was
anyway.
really well
and
done.
Vulture kind of has a look for that, so I think
Yeah.
that fits.
They made it even creepier. Like they made him kind of a
Okay.
cannibal.
Oh, okay.
So it was interesting.
Yeah.
And he was deformed. So to fight him, I hope I'm not ruining this for you guys, but you would go to this one building and he would be knocked down, and you would take the big light and shine it on him, and he's used to living in the darkness, so that would kind of
Okay.
It was like,
yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
they kind of
That was exactly it.
so they kind of took a realistic approach to it
Yeah.
to fit it in that setting.
But I was very happy with that one, especially because, and I was surprised by this, how acrobatic they made Spider-Man. I mean, the first level you fight Kraven the Hunter, and you walk into the jungle, and you'd walk by a wall, and just like in Indiana Jones, you have like those pictures of faces on the wall.
Yeah.
they're
And out
spitting
of the
darts at
mouth,
you.
yeah, spitting darts.
Oh, that's kind of
Well,
cool.
you would just be holding guard. You don't have to mash buttons. You just hold guard, and he'd automatically just evade all of them.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
But if you'd be fighting against a big guy, like someone who would slam down
Yeah.
with like a club or something, you would have to jump back, and that was also very fluid. So
Yeah.
even though the game didn't
That's-
have very good reception, I was very happy with it.
It sounds
they-
like it had a lot of
so
good
they're doing a
gameplay
sequel.
factor.
They're doing a sequel.
Yeah,
now.
I saw something about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I'm just,
believe it's called Spider-Man Edge of
Edge
Time.
of Time. Yeah, that's right. Because it's going to have the, I think the 2099
And the
Spider-Man
classic.
and the classic
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
I mean, the thing that draws me to that game makes me want to play it is your description of when you're fighting Deadpool.
That's really interesting.
And I just from what you've been telling me is like, man, I just want to play this to hear Deadpool make jokes.
Okay, as long as we're talking about bring up Deadpool, I don't know how many of you have seen this already, but on YouTube there's this channel called Just Some Random Guy. He does these hilarious videos called I'm a Marvel, I'm a DC.
I've seen those.
And his portrayal of Deadpool
It's so spot on.
It's so spot on. It's that's what's got me into the character. It's like
that's what did it for me too, actually.
I've never read the comics. I mean, I have very little exposure to it. But the way he portrays the characters in his little web series is hilarious and awesome. And each character, the Rorschach and Deadpool buddy cop parody is just absolutely hysterical.
Have you seen the one with Deadpool and what's his name, Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah.
It's like, hello, whoa.
I love. Oh, there's also the one where.
Which Dr. Manhattan and Wolverine. I was like, could you put some pants on? Well, does this make it better? I never thought I'd say this, but yes, your Speedo makes me more comfortable.
And the other thing too is like they'll be like, I'm Marvel, I'm Batman. He's never I'm in DC, he's always I'm Batman.
That's funny.
But
One of my favorite ones of that was like it's when they were leading up to Dark Knight, and it's the what was the character that Will Smith played? The superhero? Hancock. They were leading up to that with Hancock making fun of Batman, and then Batman rides in with a truck full of pennies,
Yeah.
making fun of Hancock. You're like, oh man,
and just dumps the pennies.
just dumping more pennies. Like, oh, another truckload.
And like he has his own little like he's done so many that he started having to split them up into different things. Like he'll have his after hours where it's all these different superheroes in a bar, where Hulk is the bouncer.
Because why not?
Well, and obviously Iron Man's always sitting there, getting over his alcoholism.
Or getting back into it.
And the funniest thing is, I was watching one last night, and Spider-Man apparently he normally doesn't drink, but he went out. He passed out on the table, and somebody's like, Hulk. They're like, Bruce, who spiked Spider-Man's milkshake? And Hulk is like, sorry, it's just too funny.
There's actually a really funny skit online, also on YouTube, with good voice work for Deadpool. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this one, where Deadpool is trying to get a girl. And
It's a great setup for a joke
as
already.
a guide, he has the guy from the Twilight series. What's his name? Edward something.
Okay.
It's really funny. So he'd be like, what you want to do is you want to just keep staring at her and look constipated.
I feel like I've
Just
seen
keep
that one
looking at her.
actually.
And he's like, he drops his shoulders down and he just stares forward blankly. And he looks back at the guy to ask if he's doing okay. The guy's like, yeah, that's it, keep going. So it's really funny. I mean, you guys want to watch it on.
Okay, I mean, we're getting a little sidetracked here, unfortunately. So moving on.
Yeah, but you want to play that game just to see the conversations between Spider-Man and Deadpool.
Yes, I do want to play it. Just
there
for
was
that.
also a clip of from the Hulk versus movie where they have Deadpool, and it's just absolutely hilarious.
Oh, Wolverine versus
Where
Hulk.
Wolverine comes in and like slices Deadpool's arm in half.
Yeah, that's Wolverine versus Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was, okay. But it was just, I mean, you can find it on YouTube. It's just like 2 minutes. And all they did was just edit all the Deadpool stuff together. It's absolutely
I've seen that
hilarious.
one. He actually missed a few because there's
Okay.
so much stuff in that one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of content in that one, yeah. Okay, so yeah, if you guys haven't checked out that Shattered Dimensions, give it a try before the sequel comes out. The stories are not linked together, so it's not a true sequel, but it's still worth checking out. I mean, just to see the 4 different universes and to see how they did every single Spider-Man differently, it's definitely worth seeing. I would say it's the best Spider-Man game I've played.
That's cool. And just to backtrack, just to clarify on something, we mentioned this on the last podcast, but I want to clarify it's the right series. This is the 94 series, is the one that's on the Marvel website that people can watch?
That one is up there for sure. At least it was last month when I checked.
Okay.
I don't see a reason why they would have removed it. Maybe they added the other ones also, but that one you can watch on there for sure. But it is the 94, yes.
We'll definitely look into that one. So check out the Marvel website for info on that.
Okay.
They might even be putting on DVD soon. Who knows? If it's not already there.
Yeah, maybe Fry's has it. I know they have the X-Men
Actually,
one.
they do have it on DVD.
Okay, well, there you go.
So.
So if you don't want to steal, which I suggest you don't.
Well, it's on
I don't
Marvel's
think it-
website.
yeah,
They're
that's
offering
true.
it
It's
to you
legal,
for free.
yeah.
Yes. But I'm just saying,
So
if you want to own it, don't steal.
don't
Don't
be
be a pirate.
stealing if they give it to you for free.
But I'm saying ownership. If you're watching
Yeah.
it, it's fine. But if
You
you
wanna
want
be
to
owning it.
Oh, yeah.
ownership,
Oh, yeah.
however.
Okay.
I mean, quality is good, but you know,
Obviously, you're going to get better quality with a DVD.
yeah.
Yes.
And you're going to have the portability factor too.
Okay, so moving on from the 94 series, what was next?
What was next is they actually did Spider-Man Unlimited in 1999. And when I first
vaguely remember that a little.
When I first heard about this, all I knew is that they canceled it after first season. And I thought, why?
Well,
I
Yeah.
mean, the animation was getting good. They did so well in 94. I was expecting that I'd just be getting a new series of Spider-Man with better animations.
And in the future.
Yeah, updated basically. What did they do? They completely messed it
They
up.
put Spider-Man in space with aliens.
Yeah, I mean,
Really?
in the first
Yes.
episode,
They put this is about the same. This is as good an idea as putting Batman in space with aliens.
Actually, I think that would go better than this.
It actually
This
has
one-
Brave and the Bold, Batman Brave and the Bold. They actually have him in space with aliens, and it's actually a workable show because
Yeah.
it's designed for little kids, so it's got a comedic appeal to it. But yeah, Spider-Man Unlimited, he was in space with aliens, and it made no sense.
Yeah.
You basically took the whole
destroys
character.
the whole concept of the character.
Yeah, it does, which is why it tanked after one season.
So what happened
As
was,
it should.
no, what happened is, I kept thinking, okay, this can't be that bad. So
Famous last words.
So I watched first episode and it's him struggling to get on the spaceship and the spaceship is leaving.
Yeah.
He's
Why
fighting
was he getting
Carnage.
on the spaceship to begin with?
I don't remember exactly. I don't know if they simply
honestly
leave it
don't
out
remember.
but he's getting on the spaceship and he's fighting Carnage and Venom. The first thing that turned me off is that Carnage and Venom, they're not occupying a person. Like, it's not someone in the Venom costume, someone in the Carnage costume.
Mm-hmm.
It is just a pure symbiote fighting him. So I thought, oh, come on. You just
That's no good.
took away like most of the personality.
I know. It takes some of the characters. I mean, I think
Yeah.
right then and there, in that first episode where it's like, okay, Spider-Man on a rocket ship in space, and we're pretty much ignoring all character and continuity now. That kind of kills it to me
Yeah.
right then and there in the first episode.
So
First 20 minutes,
tried,
probably.
I tried to bear through it. I think I watched 5 episodes or so. What happens? He gets to something that I'll call like a beat-up neighborhood, fighting around.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me clarify. So this is Spider-Man in space in the hood.
Yes.
Yeah. He gets to like a beat up city controlled by talking animals.
So basically,
now.
basically, if you take Spider-Man, put him on Tatooine and Mos Eisley.
No, it's okay. So Spider-Man in space, in the ghetto, in the hood, with furries. Okay.
See, the whole time he's trying to fight this one.
Spider-Man 3 is looking better and better, isn't it?
Bring on Dancing Spider-Man, apparently.
Let me just get this out. The whole time in these 5 episodes, he's trying to get his way up to fighting the big guy, who's a talking ram driving a floating motorcycle. So don't expect the lizard or Shocker.
Is this Spider-Man meets My Little Pony? What's going on here?
I mean, the only Spider-Man thing about it was the costume. That was it.
No, and even the costume wasn't. I mean, it wasn't even the classic Spider-Man costume.
No.
They made so many changes.
They changed it up, yeah. I mean, that was the only way.
So really, they're
could've
banking on the
hinted
name Spider-Man alone.
Yeah.
I was
Yes,
like, okay,
yes.
let's make something that kind of
Well, and
looks
the
like
thing is-
Spider-Man and hope someone is dumb
Now,
enough
what
to
year-
be fooled by this.
Marcus, what year did you say that this debuted? I can't
99.
remember. 99. Okay, because I'm trying to think because either at the same time or maybe the year prior. I forget exactly what year Batman Beyond came out, but I'm thinking because Batman Beyond was a similar concept, like to take a character people know, move it to the future, make a few changes, and see that show worked. But because they kept all the characterization and everything
Exactly.
the same,
Well, they kept the context, really.
yeah, well, shoot, they even still had Bruce Wayne in the show.
Yeah.
Basically, running through Terry. So that show worked because they kept all the character continuity and everything. So I'm thinking, okay, what on earth would possess them to take Spider-Man and move it to the future? I'm guessing the success of Batman Beyond. They said, okay, well, if this character can do that, our character can do that.
Yeah.
They didn't realize, we have to keep most of this stuff the same.
Well, but here's my question: like, if that was their logic of let's put Spider-Man in the future, they have a Spider-Man of the future. Why couldn't they have made a show about that?
Yeah, 2099.
Because that would make too much sense.
Apparently, that's baffling. Again, we need to get in touch with someone to be like, okay, give me your concept. No.
I want to bring up something really funny that
Okay.
I came across a few days ago when I was listening to the GameStop podcast.
Okay.
Someone asked, why are they calling him Spider-Man 2099? And the guy answers, because he's in the year 2099.
Right.
He says, so he changes his name every year? I mean, really, if you think about it.
That's
you
true.
know?
They should get in the next Spider-Man. He should
Yeah.
refer to himself as I'm Spider-Man 2012.
There you go.
Well, I don't.
People are like, no, you're gonna end the world now.
So I thought that was a bit strange, but I guess it works. I mean, they
He could have a name tag with like a digital readout, so you can just change the year.
He could just do like Bizarre. Was like, Miem, Spider-Man, #1.
Does that mean the first Spider-Man was Spider-Man 1962?
I guess.
I suppose, yeah.
All right. So obviously, after that failure of a show, they're like, let's rethink this.
Yep. So what they did is they came out with fully animated series, and this was using CGI.
On MTV, right?
Yeah. They showed it on MTV.
That's-
This also only lasted one season, but I could actually get into this.
That was the one starring Neil Patrick Harris, right?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay. I recall, I want to say it was that one.
Spider-Man was voiced. Yeah, that was him. There you go.
That's on the ball tonight.
I know. Because I did,
watched it, but
briefly see an episode or two of this. I was like, I agree. It was one I could get into.
Yeah.
Problem is, once I get into it, they canceled it.
That's what happened to me.
And I'm like, what the? Why?
You know,
So-
this is the first time hearing of this. I really need to watch this.
Yeah, it's only 13 episodes.
So you were too busy watching movies. I was watching TV.
Apparently, this is where I failed as
Yeah.
a Spider-Man fan.
It's only 13 episodes. They basically did a modern take on it. The intro
Yeah.
song was techno. It was him in college. It was him liking Mary Jane. They were trying to get together.
Yeah.
He was hiding his secret from everyone, you know.
They did the villains
Yeah.
pretty well too, if I remember.
Some of the villains, yeah.
Because I
You see
mean,
some
I
of the
only saw a
villains?
few.
Don't get me wrong. They didn't introduce villains and screw them up.
Right.
They simply had some original villains and they introduced some new characters.
Because I remember
you
the
know?
lizard was
Yeah.
there.
So of course, this was like a modern version, so they weren't afraid to say, "I'll kill you," you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
But it was also on MTV, so you're on a cable channel
Yeah.
where you've got a more restricted audience as opposed to, say, NBC where it's
Yeah.
everyone sees this. And it's MTV, so you're already, you're tailored to an older audience.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me
think
wrong.
I'm
They're not throwing around the F word or anything like that.
No, they're not using bad language, but they're less restricted on what they can do, which means
Exactly, yeah.
they can make it PG as opposed to G,
Yeah.
which is, for superheroes, I think it's better.
So that one is actually worth getting into. If you find a place that you can watch it, I recommend it. Like I said, it'll feel a bit strange at first, but after an episode or two, I think you're going to keep going through more and more. And same thing, animation was very fluid. I especially liked how agile they made Spider-Man and made him slender and toned.
Yeah.
So he could do all this stuff and you didn't think, here he is a football player
Yeah.
acting like...
But also you didn't feel like he was too scrawny where he had
Exactly.
no ability at all.
Yeah. So I liked how they did this one.
Okay, cool. Is that it for Spider-Man in TV stuff? Or
No, actually, there's
you got one more.
There's one more.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2008 version.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Again, this is where I'm failing as a Spider-Man fan.
This one, actually, I have some of the episodes, but I started watching the first episode and I thought, oh, this has got to be like Saturday morning cartoon because it was just so cartoon-like.
You know, the thing is, that's what I liked about it. I
See,
liked the
couldn't
fact
get
that it felt
into
like a Saturday morning cartoon because I was old enough, when it came out where I missed Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
So anything that felt like a Saturday morning cartoon, I'm like, I'm gonna love this.
Which, by the way, they don't make anymore.
I know. We'll talk about that on another one. But then I don't know if you ever saw the show Kim Possible on Disney Channel, but that was a parody of Saturday morning cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think because that was on the Disney Channel as well, at least when I saw it, because it was on like Toon Disney or something. And actually, they got more stuff correct from the comics. from what I've seen so far, like they worked in the first episode, because I started watching some of that in order, where like they introduced the Vulture right away, the Triumvirate with Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn. And they already have Gwen Stacy as the original love interest. They don't bring in Mary Jane till a little bit later. But Peter's still in high school, and the way they work it is he's doing such good work in high school that he has kind of like this mini internship with the college where he's working with Doc Connors. Mm-hmm. And they work in the black suit and Venom, and they work in so many different things on a really cool way. Still, I think what's nice about the show is they did a nice merging of, they were conscious of the fact that by the time this show came out, the mainstream audience was already aware of Spider-Man from the films, at least from the first two. I don't recall if this was out before Spider-Man 3 or not, but at least the first two. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, okay, well, people are conscious of this version of Spider-Man. Let's try to bring more of the comics and kind of bring a merger of the two. Yeah. And that's what they did, and they did a really good job with it. The animation, actually, it's the same animation company that did the show The Batman from the early 2000s that did not do quite as well. And quite honestly, that animation style, that art style fits Spider-Man very well, I thought. It didn't fit Batman quite as well because it was a little bit too round, and I felt like Batman should be a little bit more angular. But for Spider-Man, it worked really well. They were able to draw the character in new ways. The way they did his costume was pretty nice, where the web design wasn't not very dense, but still very much there. And so I felt like animation-wise, it felt good for the show. Writing-wise, I thought it was pretty good. You still had that sense of humor from Spider-Man. There were a lot of elements there that I'm like, okay, this is a lot of fun to watch.
Sounds like I'm going to have to give this another shot.
Yeah, I think
because the intro song sounded good, and I had it, even though I literally just skimmed across the episode,
right,
like watching like 5-second pieces. The dialogue seemed okay. Story-wise, seemed to be coherent.
They do it's a lot more complex show than it leads on.
Okay.
And I think the reason that they chose the intro song they did is because they were basically saying, okay, this is something new. This is something it's its own thing. Watch it. Start with the first episode. Watch that through, because the one nice thing I like about the show is it doesn't just have a random adventure every time. It really is an ongoing storyline.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's each episode is its own thing. It's not like it leaves it at a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
And you have to see the next episode to know what's going on. But
like if you're watching Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or something where it's a continuous story.
Or some of the 4-parters from the 90s animated series. It does a good job of tying each episode together with common threads. Like, for instance, the relationship between Gwen and Peter. At least at first, I haven't gotten terribly far in it, but they do a nice job of stringing that together so that you feel like there's ongoing relationships and things are forming. I thought it was really well done from what I've seen so far, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the series.
That's something that I wanted to mention. This is actually the Ultimate Spider-Man version. So you're going to be seeing the villains pretty powered up. For example, Electro being pure energy and things like that.
Yeah, the way that they did Electro was actually really cool in the show. I don't want to tell anything because I want you to see that one for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that
But
one out.
it was, I liked how they did it. I thought, wow, to see this in live action would be really cool. So
That would be cool to see Electro in live action.
well,
wanna-
I'm saying specifically the way that they did it in the Spectacular Spider-Man.
okay.
Well, just so you know, in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, in the Ultimate Universe, you fight Electro, and it's pretty cool. And the humor is also there. I
what?
think of the humor.
Okay.
There's a lot of funny parts where he goes, "Oh man, please put on some pants," you know, because the guy's pure energy. So obviously,
Yeah.
it's the Ultimate Universe. At first, I raised an eyebrow. I thought, what's going on? They already had so much content to go with. They really had to create another. But you know what? I easily got into it, and I enjoy it. You know, just to add a few more facts about the 2008 series. In this one, Peter is not with Mary Jane. She's just a friend, like Matt mentioned. He's dating Gwen Stacy, and what's happening is Marvel is actually trying to introduce a lot of racial diversity in this one.
Yeah,
or
I
at least
noticed
diversity in general. For example, Elise Allen is Latin, Nick Fury is black, and for some reason, Colossus is gay.
You know what? Nick Fury is Sam Jackson. Sam Jackson is Nick Fury, so he needs to be black.
Well, in the Ultimate Universe, yeah, he is. So it's not something that he changed for this series. It's just something they have in Ultimate Universe, I
So
guess.
in the Ultimate Universe, before Sam Jackson played him, he was black.
That's what I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember looking up Nick Fury when Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 came out,
Okay.
and they were showing the Ultimate Fury.
Now,
and,
is it
yeah.
true? Because I believe I recall reading this somewhere. Maybe this was just somebody coming up with this on their own. Is it true that in the comics, Nick Fury said that the only actor to portray himself was Sam Jackson?
I don't know.
I
Okay.
have no idea.
I'm not that much of a comic book
Okay,
reader.
I
I'm more of a
remember
series
hearing
kinda
that
guy.
or reading that somewhere. I thought, okay, well that's either that's really cool or somebody's just making that up just to.
That sounds like something that Deadpool would say, but not Nick Fury.
Okay.
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Well, maybe you guys can help us out on that. Just leave us a comment if anything.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. You can comment on the blog and even on the Facebook page. So
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
feel the need. reach
Yeah,
out
feel
and,
free to correct us if we
Yeah.
if we screwed something up. I
hope so.
probably butchered some of the earlier Spider-Man series. I apologize for that in advance.
Don't let
That's
us
okay.
continue to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, the thing is, with dealing with something that has such a long run, in terms of both the content in the comics and the TV shows and that sort of thing, it's easy to get something wrong, or just not understand it fully. You know?
Especially since a lot of it we haven't seen.
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, I haven't seen any of this newer stuff.
At least with the Batman and Superman stuff, it had gained so much popularity even at its time, where it was able to be reproduced later on. For instance, the serials. You can buy those on DVD, whereas the Spider-Man cartoon from the '60s, you can't find anywhere except for maybe a couple of clips of the intro and maybe a few clips of it on YouTube.
Right.
In this one, you get to see the creation of Venom and the first appearance of Green Goblin. Season 1 and 2.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
This
right?
is
Okay.
this is still the
Just wanted to make sure I knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, I was just trying to wrap it up. They apparently aired season 1 and 2. I haven't seen them yet, like I said. And the last note, Marvel has actually announced that Ultimate Spider-Man is going to be coming to Disney XD in fall this year. So that should be interesting to see. I don't know any details about it. I'm wondering if it's cartoon animation or more like the MTV one. But I guess we're just going to have
If
to wait and
it's
see.
Disney, probably more cartoon style.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're,
But they don't necessarily need to make it adult if it's computer-generated stuff.
oh no, well that's true, but it takes a lot more money.
Yeah. No, I would
I know
be
that's
happy with either one as long as it's not...
I know there's a lot
Around.
of technical issues with doing a CG animated cartoon, especially I know with Clone Wars they spend a lot of time getting certain elements, certain characters and different character models and all that sort of stuff. They go through a lot of energy just to get, a different look of a clone trooper, and that's just taking, changing the helmet design or something. So I imagine with Spider-Man having so many different looking characters, that would be tougher to do for CG. Not to say they couldn't do it, Just that they'd have to decide whether or not it's worth the effort and the money.
Hey, as long as the talking ram on a floating motorcycle is not back, I'll give it a shot.
That's true. That's true.
All right, so let's talk about some movies, shall we?
Yep.
Matt, you might as well lead this one.
Okay, well, what should I start with?
The beginning, I would hope.
Okay. In the beginning, God said, "Let there be light."
And then let there be Spider-Man. May he shoot webbing.
And lift really heavy objects.
He blessed them with that sense of humor too, I imagine.
Yes.
May he have quick of wit and quick of fist.
Spider-Man,
But not
what was
quick
it?
of fits.
Quick-footed.
And quick-footed.
Yeah.
Quick-footed.
If you guys got that Achilles reference.
But you can at least attack Spider-Man on the hill and he's fine, so
Yeah.
it's not too bad.
He'd probably crack a joke about it too.
Yeah, he probably would.
I could go. The first...
Let's start off with this, okay?
Okay.
First of all, were there any other movies other than the Sam Raimi starring Tobey Maguire from 2002?
To my knowledge, no.
Not as far as I know.
Okay, so good. And there's a reason for that. It's because Stan Lee said, look, I don't want to see a live-action Spider-Man until you guys can do the proper special effects for it.
That makes total sense. And I'm glad he said that, because, I would be disappointed if someone's making a movie of Spider-Man and is like, wait, that's not really web slinging. That looks more like web falling.
Right. In fact, Stan Lee and Bob Kane were really good friends for a long time. And so obviously in '89, when Bob Kane, was kind of joking to say, I got me a blockbuster here with Batman, and Stan's like, just wait. As soon as I get the special effects right, Spider-Man's going to make a lot of money. And it did. And for various reasons. Marcus, what was your experience of seeing Spider-Man, the movie?
The first one?
Yeah, the first one.
That was actually the first movie that I've ever seen at the theater.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, because what happened is, that was actually right after we came here.
Okay. So I guess movie theaters are not prevalent in Romania?
They are, but the one that we had was damaged by an earthquake before I was born.
Well, that kind of sucks.
And they never actually rebuilt it.
Oh, well, that kind of
So-
stinks.
Too cheap or too lazy?
You either saw it, I think they didn't have the money.
Wow,
for
they
it.
were
Okay.
really missing out. Because going to a movie, especially if it's opening night full of fans, is really the reason why that's still going. Like, that's a great way to experience things.
Well,
you know?
especially growing up, like I was telling Andrew many times, I've had so many fond memories of going to the movies with my parents and my family. So it's someone like me who grew up doing that, not necessarily all the time, but certainly in the summertime when we had summers off. And I remember like my dad would make jokes about certain things, or like we'd go to see like Three Musketeers from the 90s and be like, that's How I Met Your Mother, that sort of thing. So I have a lot of those fun memories. So for me, it's like the concept of not seeing a movie until such late life is so bizarre.
I
Yeah,
feel sorry for him, man. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
We need to take him back in time and bring
you
him
got
over
to
here.
appreciate it more,
Well, yeah, I was
so you
gonna
can
say.
imagine how mind blown I was.
Yeah.
Because what happened is you either saw it on TV or you didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a DVD player.
Oh, wow.
We had a VHS, but no DVD player.
But still, I mean, at least they showed most of the time decent movies on TV.
Yeah,
You just had to wait about 3-4 years after the movie came out.
more than that.
Oh,
We got a bunch of crappy
wow.
series.
So you're probably still watching 80s movies in the late 90s.
Well,
Pretty
if I may, there was a movie called Euro Trip where the cast of the characters get lost in like some part of Europe.
Yeah, it's like Eastern Europe.
No,
It's Eastern Germany.
Eastern Germany.
Like-
and they come across this dude and he's like, "Oh, you're Americans. What's up?" And he starts quoting all these really dated 80s phrases and he thinks it's current.
No, it's not 80s.
Okay, so it's not quite like that.
And now again, it's a joke in the movie, but you saying,
There's some truth to
Like-
it. That's why it's funny.
Okay.
Yeah. The movies.
I mean, granted, it takes a while for things to translate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plus, there weren't like, pay-per-view channels where you could just watch it as soon as it came out on DVD. No, we
Yeah.
just had like, standard cable, and that took us a while to get. But
So the first movie we saw in America was Spider-Man.
So the
At the-
first
at the
movie that
theater.
he saw in a theater
In the theater.
At the
was
theater.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
because before that, I saw my first movie on DVD, and that was actually Lord of the Rings, first one. And same thing, I was mind blown. So I had good experiences as far as first,
Yeah.
But I was very happy with it. I mean, I knew about Spider-Man from the the
Animated
series that I watched
Yeah.
on Fox Kids. Yeah. So I remember that it was really late, and we barely got to the theater. I can't remember if we caught the beginning or not, but
Did you? Was it a midnight show or?
Yeah, it was the
Okay.
last show of the day. I think it started around 10:15 or so.
Okay.
I remember that. I mean, I was so excited. I was
Yeah.
I was so taken in. If I would have been watching it at home, my eyes would have been glued to the screen. You know, that sort of thing. I really liked it though. You know. And then when it came out on DVD, we rented it and we watched it, and then they showed it on TV, and I watched it there twice more. So I was,
So you were
I was
able to
like,
buy the movie?
I was like, yeah, I'm able to rewatch movies.
No, but I mean, as opposed to renting it, why didn't you just buy it?
I don't know. See, there's all these.
I guess it's I guess it's one of those things where because
Yeah.
I'm so used to it where if I see a movie in a theater, I decide okay, how many times am I gonna watch this? If I'm gonna watch it at least 3 times, I'm gonna buy it
Yeah.
because I know I'm gonna spend what I would watching it.
See, the way that it works with me is that even though my favorite movies are dramas, there's a handful of these action movies which are PG-13. They have action and comedy.
And drama.
And it just works for me. Like,
Yeah.
for example, let's see The Mummy 1 and 2, Men in Black,
Yeah.
the Spider-Man movies, Alien vs. Predator, the first one.
Yeah.
Those I can just rewatch again and again.
Because they're just fun.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. Like, even if I'm not a nerd and looking like every single movie.
It doesn't have to be a great movie. It's just fun.
It's just enjoyable.
Kick
Yeah.
back, sit down, have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I'm with a lot of my movies.
Makes sense to me.
Your first experience with...
With the movie?
yeah.
Oh, when I saw the teaser trailer, the first time, I was like,
You talking about the one with the Twin Towers?
yeah,
Okay.
like when the helicopter gets stuck in the spider web between
Yeah.
the towers. My jaw hit the floor. I don't even remember what movie we saw.
I just remember, holy crap, they're making a Spider-Man movie.
And the thing is, it's sort of like, did I remember that, like, would I talk about the movie after we saw it? No. I was talking about the teaser trailer. I was like, I am going to see that. Opening night, whenever it comes out, I'm going. I don't care. And I was able to drive at this point when it came out. I forget what year it came out. So it had to be, had to be at least 2002. So I was driving at that point. I was I was either still in high school
Came
or
out
just
the
out
first
of high
weekend in
school.
May in June 2000.
Also, I was still in high school at the time.
2002.
I think. Yeah, I was still in high school at the time when I saw it. And I took 2 of my friends, and we went to a midnight showing, the night it came out. And I didn't have a Spider-Man shirt at the time. No, wait, I take that back. I did have a Spider-Man shirt. I got it from the Islands of Adventure theme park where they have a Spider-Man ride and a Marvel island. It's really fun. And I also had a silk overshirt of Spider-Man. It's a nice shirt. I think it's more polyester, but it's got a really cool Spider-Man design on it.
Yeah.
And so I wore that as well. And I wore that all day at school. I definitely remember that because I was like, and people were like ready for the movie. I'm like, yeah, I'm going tonight. I'm so ready. And we got there on time, and I watched it. And I was just, the thing was, it's one of those movies where yes, it's not a perfect movie. Yes, there are flaws in it, but I didn't care. It was one of those movies. It's like The Dark Knight for
Yeah.
me. I mean, it's not the same level as Dark Knight now, but it's one of those things where I was happy.
Yeah.
I was so happy that someone finally took a character that I had known and loved all my life, and they put it on the big screen and did it justice. It wasn't overly cheesy.
How
it wasn't,
I was more with Batman Begins.
and it wasn't overly campy. Yes, there was some elements to it, but it's supposed to have some of that to
Yeah,
it,
it's supposed to have that sense of humor. Like, I really did thoroughly enjoy the part where Green Goblin busts in on Jonah Jameson, and Spider-Man goes out and he shoots Jameson in the mouth with the weapon. He goes, hey, why don't you let Mom and Dad talk here?
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
And so, I mean, in all honesty, and people kind of unfairly judge this movie on certain aspects, and I say, it's supposed to be fun, and to me it is. It's a fun movie to watch.
And there were the other thing is there were so many elements to take from the comic, from the animated series that had been done prior to it, and translate that to a live action format. And it's like anything else. Changes are going to be made.
Mm-hmm. It has to. I mean, you can't take one thing from one medium to the other without changing it to some degree. It's going to happen.
I feel sorry for the people who think that you can take it from one medium to the other without changing anything because, no.
Certain things work on the page but don't work on the screen. You know?
As we've talked about, primarily, say, for instance, Batman's costume. It works great in drawn form for it to be tights because I can suspend disbelief, but in live action form, no, it doesn't.
Right.
And I think Spider-Man is the same way. Green Goblin, a guy flying around on a glider. Put him in a military-grade survival suit with a helmet.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're flying around at high speeds, you kind of want to protect your head.
Yeah, don't put him in a Halloween mask.
Which makes Harry the dumbest Green Goblin ever.
Yes.
in the third Spider-Man.
But we'll get to that in a minute.
But one thing I do want to talk about before I ask you how you felt about it was I do want to mention the fact that I thought, and again, some people may disagree, that the casting was really well done for the first Spider-Man.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Where I felt they picked a really good Peter Parker. And I know a lot of people disagree because like, oh, Tobey Maguire, he's not really a superhero. He doesn't fit the role. But to me, he's like...
Peter Parker's not a superhero. He shouldn't fit
I know,
the role.
but he fits the Peter Parker role. And yes, he's supposed to be Spider-Man as well, but especially in that movie where he's just learning how to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And making that transition. To me, it feels more right for that kind of person to be playing that role. And I think the person who played Jameson was great.
Oh, yeah. He was great.
They picked a great person.
I loved him. Especially the scene, Miss whatever, bring me violin. I thought that was hilarious.
The way he was able to do that, just that
Your wife's on the phone? I'll call her back. Tell her I'm not here.
I'm trying to think, what's the right description? That matter of fact. Steadfast, just blatant, barking orders, but at the same time, he hit his beats without question.
Oh, that was perfect.
I mean, you picked the right... It was so weird because when I first heard about the casting, I looked up a picture of the guy. I'm like, he doesn't look like him at all. But then what they did with his hair and makeup and everything, you're like, oh, it's totally him.
Yeah.
He stepped out of the comic books.
Except the weirdest thing was, because I had grown up with the animated series, I was expecting to hear Ed Asner's voice.
Can't have everything.
So I know, it's one of those things. It took me a second because... I had to readjust to the format and to the different actor. But, once I readjusted, which took a matter of seconds, you're right into it.
Yeah. I actually liked this version of John Jonah Jameson a lot more than the animated one. When I watched the animated one, I was like, oh, great character. He plays the role of the boss really well.
Yeah.
And the voice and everything. But I didn't feel that the guy was really funny in the animated version.
Oh, yeah, you didn't really feel like there was the same
it's just like, man, he's just a jerk of a boss,
Yeah.
But in this one, even though they gave him like a deeper voice, so you'd expect him to be, meaner, his sense of humor was
I think it was
really
the fact that it was over the top, but in a good over the top. Not campy, but it was over the top of, he was always barking orders. You felt like the guy was just stressed out to no end, and that was just funny.
Yeah.
Speaking over the top, a lot of people complain about Green Goblin. And the thing is, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible with remembering actors.
Quite honestly,
what's the man's name?
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe. I cannot default Willem Dafoe.
And you know what? I think my favorite scene that he was in was the one where he's talking to himself in the mirror. Mm-hmm. That scene, which really shows that when he starts to realize he is the Green Goblin, I thought, wow, what a great dichotomy of this character who literally, it's almost a Jekyll and Hyde. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I thought, wow, what a great character, because I knew nothing about the Green Goblin, except for the little bits that were in the animated series. And even then, I never knew anything about the Green Goblin. He would just show up, battle Spider-Man, that was it. They didn't really delve into much to it. So to see that transition, to see Harry's reaction to learning that, having to deal with his dad being always off and that sort of thing, I thought it was really well done. There were complaints about the suit. It looked too Power Ranger. And I'm like I said before, I don't really want to see a guy riding around on a glider not wearing a helmet. I think the helmet made the most sense of all. Yeah. And it was like a battle suit. To me, that makes sense.
I mean, plus he was developing it from the military. So, again, it makes, especially, the thing is, it's in the context of the film, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I just wish they would have added like a cape or something. Honestly, because just to make the transition easier for us.
Well, if the Incredibles taught us anything, capes equal death.
That's true. You don't want that cape getting caught into a turbine engine.
I know. That was in The Incredibles, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's what missing for me.
Well,
I could definitely see the need for that costume that he was wearing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I wanted more of a connection to the character that I know. A visual connection.
No, I see what you're saying, I think it could have been done a little differently. I've actually got a picture of somebody that's taken the comic book design and the movie design and basically fused the two together.
Yeah.
So that, yes, he's got a helmet on, but it's got more of that tapered, the hat, where it's got the purple elements, and it's got like more of a purple tunic on it, so that it is, but it's still got the green armor look to it.
Yeah.
And so it's a nice merging of the two. And I thought, that's something where somebody took the time and said, look, yes, I can respect what they did in the film, but I also like what they did in the comics. Let me try to find a merger.
Yeah.
And I really like when people do that. And that's one thing that I thought kind of moving forward with what they did with Doc Ock was a really good idea.
Yeah. That I really liked.
So
Anyway.
Matt, what was your first experience?
My first experience.
So what was your first
That's
experience?
Well, as you know, I have this little tradition of going to the Renaissance Festival at about April or May, and then afterwards seeing a movie. And this was in the early years of developing this tradition. So it was me, a friend of mine, and my brother, and we went to the Renaissance Festival and then went to go see Spider-Man afterwards. And like I said, my only exposure to the character prior to seeing the movie was the 90s animated series. So going into the movie, I had little to no idea who the Green Goblin was, kind of an idea as Jameson, and then, I knew who Spider-Man was. And then so I'm watching it, and the scene where Peter is testing out his webbing, the scene where Peter's sitting down drawing out concept designs for the costume, I'm like, that is so me. It's like, that's what I would do. Because that's what I do already. Yeah. I just don't have the powers to back it up.
Not yet.
And of course, since I'm a wrestling fan, I really enjoyed that they paid tribute to the fact that in the comics he started off at trying to be a pro wrestler.
Yeah, and then they worked in, what's his face?
Bruce Campbell?
No, the other guy.
Oh, the Macho Man.
Yeah.
As Bonesaw.
Yeah.
So the Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Yeah.
Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah. Can't do that, folks.
No, that's a hard one to do. But I thoroughly enjoyed all the aspects of it. I think the only part that I didn't like was the fact that they killed off Green Goblin. Because it reminded me too much of seeing the Joker die in Batman 89. I'm like, why do you have to kill off the villains? Stop killing off the villains.
That was kind of the only thing they suffered from these things. Were kill the villain and move on. Oh, the Penguin, kill him, move on. Two-Face, kill him, move on.
Yeah, I was hoping the character would last longer, too.
Times 2, apparently.
No. Yeah, I know.
Killing Two-Face times 2.
Boom, ching. I wonder if they did that on purpose. I don't know.
Perhaps.
But at any rate,
what are you talking about?
Well, Two-Face dies in Batman Forever, and then he dies again in Dark Knight.
I don't remember that. Really?
Yeah. So they killed Two-Face twice.
They must have really not liked it.
So really, you could say that Two-Face only lives twice.
But then again, you die another day.
I wasn't sure you were going to get that one.
So overall, you had a positive experience.
I had a thoroughly enjoyable experience, and we also wore Spider-Man shirts to go see it because Mom got me and my brother a Spider-Man shirt. So I was like, yay! So it was a lot of fun. I, of course, went home and thoroughly awaited in apprehension for the release of the DVD so I could get it, and I did, and watched it and that sort of stuff. So it was an enjoyable movie. I still enjoy it.
It is.
The only complaint I would say is they could have picked somebody a little hotter to play Mary Jane.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with that either.
I mean, I thought she was a good actress. She just was not what I picture as, she's not the kind of girl I'm attracted to, I guess I would say.
I thought Gwen Stacy was much better
looking. She could use a little more curves.
Yeah. Even though Gwen Stacy wasn't like voluptuous or anything, I thought she was a better choice for like a, female interest for Peter Parker.
They could have done worse.
They could have.
I will say, here's the interesting irony, is that the girl who played, Kirsten Dunst, who played Mary Jane, was a natural blonde, whereas the girl who played Gwen Stacy, who I forget the name, was a natural redhead.
Oh, irony.
I know. Yeah.
Such a funny thing you are.
So
moving on to Spider-Man
Any chance
2.
that Peter likes brunettes?
Apparently not.
Yeah, apparently
we never see him, because even in the animated series...
Felicia Harvey's blonde, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, she's blonde, and it's like...
I was going to say, because in the animated series, they make her hair look white. So I was wondering...
Yeah.
Well, in the animated series, it's a little different, because, he knows her as Felicia, but he doesn't actually know, in the comics, Felicia until he meets the Black Cat.
Yeah.
Who has her own thing going. So
No. he knows.
Well, he knows who she is, but like in the comic books itself, he doesn't meet Felicia first. He meets the Black Cat first.
Oh, okay.
as
It's
Spider-Man.
not that way in the animated one.
I mean, that's kind of the thing.
The animated series, I mean, the first episode of the animated series, he's like almost dating Felicia.
Yeah, they're dancing together and they almost kiss. Or do they kiss?
I don't recall.
I think
so.
I think their thing was they didn't want to include Gwen because if you included Gwen, you have to kill her. Because comic book fans would desire it. So like, let's not include her.
Maybe I like Gwen.
And
Sorry.
I mean, I was just going to say, like, the thing we didn't really touch on for the animated series, going back briefly, is a lot of the things that a lot of people who were familiar with the comics knew, they didn't do in the series. Sometimes just because, like, okay, we don't have anything going for Fantastic Four or any of these other things that Spider-Man would be affiliated with when certain storylines happen, so we'll just change it up. Like when they introduced the black suit in the Spider-Man cartoon, it came from, like, a spaceship that crash landed.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in the comic books, he went to, like, another dimension and found the suit. And that was, like, during, like, when a whole bunch of superheroes were battling a bunch of supervillains at the time. So, obviously, they couldn't pull that in for the show, so they had to make do. And, obviously, they couldn't do that for the third movie.
And quite honestly, I like the idea that the symbiote comes from space as opposed to another dimension.
Right.
That's just me.
But I don't want to get too off topic. So, let's focus on the movies, if we can.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to the second one.
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2, with the villain Doc Ock.
Doc Ock, my favorite villain, played by the wonderful Alfred Molina.
Who was in Indiana Jones.
Yes, he was the little helper guy at the beginning of Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, who dies because he was greedy.
He's the one who takes the whip and he's like, sorry, I got the idol, and then doesn't make it out.
He did a good job in Maverick also, if you guys
Didn't see him in that.
Yeah, he was really
He was
good.
also Snidely Whiplash in the Dudley Do-Right movie.
And
he did a good Snidely Whiplash. He was funny.
No, every single role that I've seen him in, he nails it, even though it's completely different. Like he'll play the angry Mexican gambler in Maverick, whatever you want to call it. He's like a bandit. But I just saw him in The Pink Panther too.
Yeah.
And he was playing.
I hadn't seen that yet.
You should watch it.
And he was also in Prince of Persia.
I don't remember that.
Is the guy who runs the ostrich races.
Yeah, you're right.
He was pretty
That was him. Yeah.
And it's like, I agree. It's like every role he's in is like, you can kind of tell it's him, but he does kind of disappear in the role, and he's so good at it.
Yeah. So I really like him.
And to me, I just find he's a very thoroughly enjoyable villain in this.
He was. And what I really like is how they did a diversion from the comics, where, or at least from what they did in the animated series, where, you know, the animated series, like they give, at least in the movie, they gave him a wife. And it wasn't that he wanted revenge or anything. It was, you know, the idea of the arms taking control of him and kind of having a mind of their own. I thought, wow, that's a really cool way to do it. Kind of give it their own consciousness. And the nice thing was, it wasn't terribly explained how the technology works. So I was like, okay, you can kind of leave it up to your interpretation of as how that would come about and that sort of thing. So you have that, you know, that sense of you're filling in the gaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
Nice.
It's fine. You don't need everything.
They explained what they needed to, but they left enough where you could fill in the gaps.
Before I forget this, in the animated series, when Doc Ock shows up and he kidnaps Felicia Harvey,
yeah,
she actually makes like a kind of a dirty joke. She goes, he's just like Josh Thompson. He's all hands.
Oh, I remember that.
I was like, what? They can do that?
I know. It's like they can get away with that, but they can't say you killed or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
So I thought that was a bit strange, you know?
Censorship is weird like that.
It is weird like that. But yeah, I mean, this is the opening of the movie. I really liked how the opening credits, they had a comic book drawing of a recap of the previous movie. I was like, well, that's kind of a cool way to start the movie off. This is, and I will say this because this is coming from a different standpoint. The music of the first movie I thought was really good. Danny Elfman, who was known for the Batman theme and the music from Batman and Batman Returns, thought he did a really good job. I thought his use of the strings in creating that spider-like sound of like the crawling up the walls and that sort of thing was really cool, and I liked how he worked that in. And he actually, you know, the theme that he did for not Doc Ock.
Well,
there is that one
too.
But the theme that he did for the Green Goblin, it was a fairly clear theme, but unfortunately, it didn't have a lot of presence that some other themes that he's done have had. So it was harder for the audience to pick that out. Yes, it was there, but not very clear. With Doc Ock, he went a whole different route, and it was very much there and had presence.
Nah.
Wow, you guys synchronized that perfectly.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing.
A lot of practice went there.
The reason why it sticks in our minds so much is not long after the movie came out, someone made a parody where they took stills from the movie and kind of
This
gave
was before
them,
YouTube.
This is before YouTube. Or they took stills from the movie and kind of gave it some brief bits of animation, but the real focus was the audio, where they were dubbing it, and just the brief bits, and they had just brief bits of things. And the setup for this little bit is, because in Spider-Man 2, he's riding a crummy little moped, and it gets wrecked.
Yeah.
But so Spider-Man says to Doc Ock, it's out of context now.
Well, and it was Otto.
It was Otto as Otto
before
for
he
the
was
picture.
Doc Ock.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it doesn't matter because he's telling Otto, I kind of messed up your bike. And then rather than saying something angrily, Otto simply goes, nah. And the thing is, like, if you've never seen it before, it comes so out of left field that you're just like, whoa! And then you get that memory of if you've seen it and you hear it, you instantly recognize it. So it just brings it back full circle. So it was really well done and funny.
It was, and not only that, but I mean, pay attention to it the next time you watch the movie, because the theme it's kind of like, at least I kind of think of it like not so much like the Shark in Jaws, but as far as musically,
it lets you know he's there.
Yeah, it lets you know he's there, and that's what I like about this theme. And Danny Elfman, at least from a musical standpoint, he has this thing where he'll do a movie, for instance, say Batman or Spider-Man, and do a good job with that. It works well with the film, and so okay, we're gonna make a sequel. We'll call you back. Then he does an even better job with the next one. I really like how he upped the ante for the score in Spider-Man 2. Same with Batman Returns. He did a really good job with that score. And then for whatever reason, he leaves on the third one. So,
which might be a sign of things, really.
It was creative differences, but we'll get. I don't really know I don't know anything other than that. But
well, not to dwell on one movie too long, because we do want to say our piece on each one. But I will say this, for all its flaws, that Spider-Man, I don't think it's nearly as good as the first one, but I wouldn't say it's far off. I mean, I do really enjoy it. I
personally think the second one's better.
And the thing is, I enjoy them both. It's tough to say which one is truly better. Because there's some times where I like one than the other, but they're both really enjoyable to watch.
I was going to say, for me, when I think of the first one, it feels like more of a Spider-Man experience. Like, that's just more of an image of Spider-Man that I can connect to, Mm-hmm. One that I kind of grew up with. But the second one, for some reason, I have more respect for, maybe because of how the movie ends and you see a character sacrifice himself. And
I think that's part of it too, because you really appreciate the Doc Ock character.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked was, yes, you have Doc Ock as a villain, but you also have Harry kind of emerging as the second Green Goblin. I liked how they worked that story arc in, and I really liked how they had kind of Doc Ock almost work for Harry. He's like, okay, I'll kill Spider-Man for you if you get me the tritium.
Or I'll do you better. I'll bring him here.
Yeah, and so and I was like, that was the first time we had seen not necessarily a partnership of villains, but a working relationship where there's almost a hierarchy. And I thought, well, this is going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this progresses. Of course, Doc Ock later on sacrifices himself, which makes me sad because I'm like, oh, I really like you. Why do you have to go again?
Once again to kill another villain.
Once they kill again another villain, but.
And also, I'll have to say, in terms of character growth for Spider-Man himself, where he's adjusting more to living by himself and trying to make a living, and trying to get his social life in order, and still struggling with being Spider-Man to the point where trying to give it up and ignoring what he had taken on as his responsibilities, and then finding, I can't. I have responsibilities because if I lay low, then if I slack off on my duties, then the danger will come to me and affect the people I like anyway.
Right.
So to me, it felt like a good character growth film. Where
I think that's why I like it more, because it has more character arc, but you still have really great fight scenes. I love the fight scene with Spider-Man and Doc Ock on the train.
When they're going up the building.
That one too.
Not to mention they did that in Lego form, which was also awesome.
Oh yeah, that's also posted on Freakout.
I'll have to see that.
So yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, and plus I'm a huge Doc Ock fan anyway. I think that's part of the reason I enjoy that film more is because it's got Doc Ock in it, and it's taken a character I already enjoyed and made him better.
What kind of took away from the experience for me was how they did Mary Jane. I'm not going to blame this on the actress, but even from the preview, she's like, "Do you love me?" It's like it's almost like she's got like a lazy eye, like she's asleep, like leaning forward about
Like she's kind of bored.
Yeah, it's like her head's about to drop on the table when she's leaning forward, and she's looking so tired or something. And it's not like they explain that in the movie, so it's not like, oh, Mary Jane's going through a lot. She's just being so dramatic, you know? That's what kind of took away from the experience for me. And even her hair, it's like combed over to the side like an extreme. You know, it's just, you know.
I guess I just didn't really
Mary
notice.
Jane's image just kind of ruined it for me.
The only thing that kind of bothered me about the movie was the, what's it called? The fusion machine.
Mm-hmm.
You see this thing, and it's basically like these 4 arches. And I'm like, and, you know, and as you're watching, here's the thing that bothered me. Now, I'm not a science whiz by any standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're watching the film and you're watching the fusion reaction get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're seeing, I don't know, all these metal objects go toward, that's called magnetism. Hey, Doc Ock, aren't you supposed to be a science whiz? You're supposed to realize that the sun has a magnetic field. I mean, I'm not a science whiz and I know this. Maybe you should put, I don't know, something non-magnetic around it, like, I don't know, a giant plastic screen so that metal objects can't get into it. And it looked like they were basically fueling the reaction even more.
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't have put a giant glass box around it.
I think I remember even the 3 crane-looking things that are around the reactor, even those were bending in, if I remember right.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a science person, but that doesn't look right.
They just wanted more special effects, I think.
Well, I'll have to say this. Sam Raimi was probably banking on the fact that very few people knew any actual science to understand what was going on. There's also the visual aspect. I mean, it's one of those things where it is a pseudoscience. You know, you're taking science that already exists and amplifying it up to the next level. It is science fiction. All right, I can go with that. But, you know,
Well, plus,
try to have some science fact in there, too.
well, plus and also this sort of thing. It is, not to be too cliche, but this is a comic book movie, so certain elements of reality are going to be ignored a little bit.
Oh, no, I agree. But the more science fact that you can put in it makes it much more palpable.
Yeah.
It gives you a better experience. At least something like that where I'm sitting, I mean, the first time I saw the movie, I'm like, okay, why are you allowing something that's clearly magnetic to happen? You're supposed to be a scientist. You should have foresaw this.
Yeah, I mean, it is strange coming off a movie where people were like, you know what? Having a genetically modified, mutated spider makes more sense in transferring spider DNA than a radioactive one.
Yes, because a radioactive spider will simply make you sick. Whereas a mutated spider, as long as it has a retrovirus like HIV, can actually transfer its DNA to you.
And affect you. So they were saying like that's a more plausible way for Spider-Man to get his powers.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that they would.
So apparently,
You're hoping they were doing what?
I was hoping they were going to keep going with the series so that I can see Spider-Man, his mutation actually flaring up.
I thought that
so
would be kind
far,
of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So far, all you've seen from him is benefits from that spider bite, you know?
Yeah.
But in the actual animated one, he starts transforming and he
into
loses
the
his
man spider.
control.
Yeah.
And I remember he's spitting acid and, you know, he puts his claw on a door and he bends it like Juggernaut, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember he loses self-control. He barely stopped himself from killing Mega
That would have been an interesting storyline. If they
So
would've,
I would have liked that.
Even if
you
they
know?
didn't go all out man spider, it would have been interesting to see if they could pull
Yeah.
off like having him have 6 arms like he eventually developed.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool in the animated series.
I mean, that would have been interesting to see. I mean, who knows how they would have
He'd
handled
have to
it.
sew on some more sleeves, though, to his costume.
Yeah. He didn't, though, remember? They were just bare, the bottom two.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't really bother doing it in the comics either.
I guess New York wasn't cold that time of year.
I guess.
not.
But anyway, I mean, mostly still positive reviews from us for the second one. It's when we get to the third one where we have to start being like, ugh.
Well, that's mostly you. Because I'm able.
It's not mostly me.
No, well, I'm between the three of us. It's mostly you. There are certain things that I'm able to handle more so than you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before we get into the third one, I want to point out,
Okay.
because this is important, the format of the first two and how that applied to the third one, because this is really where things kind of took an interesting turn. Typically speaking, for the first two movies, you had the first major plot point of the movie was in the first one you had the transformation of Peter into Spider-Man and Harry or Norman Osborn into Green Goblin.
And I would also include probably the death of Uncle Ben.
Yeah. Well, because it was
No, it's part of the
it's part of the transformation.
The birth of
The getting bitten by the spider part was really early on, but I'm saying the transformation directly into Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So definitely the death of Uncle Ben was part of that.
Yeah.
In the second movie, you have the transformation of Doc Ock, the scene with the fusion machine and the accident and everything. Okay.
And Peter's life becoming like overwhelming for him.
Right. But it was about a half hour, 40 minutes into the movie. In both those movies, that's about when they happened, and that was kind of what took you from Act 1 to Act 2. And then I'm trying to think, in Spider-Man 1, it was, it was same thing for all three movies, was the second plot point was, guess who gets kidnapped? But at least in 1 and 2, it made sense.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just thrown in there. But when we get to Spider-Man 3, they kept the same format, but they left out the reason. They said, okay, well, the first plot point's going to be Sandman becoming Sandman. Unfortunately, in Spider-Man 1 and 2, both those plot points affected Spider-Man. Whereas in Spider-Man 3, Flint Marko turning into Sandman had nothing to do with Spider-Man.
Nope.
Other than the fact that this is the guy Spider-Man wants to beat up.
So the pacing was one of the first things I noticed that was different about Spider-Man 3. It didn't feel like it hit a similar marks, which worked in Spider-Man's 1 and 2. And so I felt like that was one of their first flaws. Was, okay, you should have had Flint Marko turn into Sandman earlier on in the film. So that, Sandman is mostly a visual villain. You need to get him into the story as quickly as possible so you can utilize that.
Yeah.
The other thing is I personally feel like the first plot point, so about a half hour, 40 minutes in the movie, should have been him getting the black suit on. You shouldn't have waited an hour to get the black suit on. Because it would have made it more interesting, and plus that way, spend some more time with him in the black suit. Let him really develop, get a sense of what this thing is. Make you feel like, hey, dude, you need to get this thing off. I never really felt that. It was just kind of on him for, about 20 minutes?
Yeah,
he's like, oh, I should get rid of this thing.
It was just him being emo and snapping at people, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, which really didn't help the movie.
And the
at all.
dance. So
the awful dancing
Here's the
scene.
thing, everyone complains about it was freaking, 1 minute?
But it was a very brutal 1 minute.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing where it takes you out of it. Because, at one point, you can kind of forgive certain things up to that point.
See, I guess I just went with it the whole time. But then
right to there, it's like, okay, you've completely gone over the edge, and this is no longer fun.
Well, see, I looked at it as his ego is just so much that he doesn't care what other people think of him.
I know, but, it's, at that point,
I'm sorry.
Overwhelmingly not fun than it is anything else.
Well,
but yeah. I would say, to me, because I don't, for the most part, it takes me a while to pick up on pacing. You pick that up far better than I do.
Yeah.
The thing that took me out of the picture, and this is maybe more because I grew up with comic books more.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
And maybe Marcus will probably agree with me on this one, is the fact that I felt that this was the first time where they didn't do a good job on the casting of certain people. In particularly Eddie Brock.
Yeah.
I felt that they they picked the wrong person for this role, because to me it just ingrained in my mind from the time I started reading comic books, from the cards, and even in the animated series, Eddie Brock is supposed to be a bigger person.
Yep.
No, the animated series is about the same size as Peter, so he's bigger.
Buff.
Yeah, he is more buff.
Plus, he starts working out like crazy once he gets the symbiote.
You see, that's the thing is, I was really not.
That's the
aware of Eddie Brock.
Yeah.
I was aware of him in the sense of, Eddie Brock is Venom, but I really didn't have much of a sense of how big he was, characterization, that sort of thing.
Well, that's also where they dropped the ball, is they kind of dropped the characterization of Venom. In all honesty, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit in how my thinking of it is, but I really feel if they were going to continue this series, which they aren't, unfortunately, that Venom should have been saved for the fourth movie.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
That,
and that's the thing is, the second plot point of this movie should have been Spider-Man ripping the suit off, and then in that last act, it should have been the symbiote finding Eddie, and then the last shot of the movie should have been Eddie getting the suit on, and then fade to black, And then we're
to
going to
be
save
continued.
this. We're going to save this for the fourth movie.
He
You
should
should have had the black suit in there, but not Venom. You should have saved that.
And the
Yeah,
thing
I
is, they never
disagree.
even said the word Venom at all in the movie.
Because Venom is that's a complex storyline to take care of. You want to hit all your beats right, and plus you've got to deal with the fact that Harry's becoming the second Green Goblin, which I didn't feel like they developed that very well. You've got Sandman in there, which I'm like, you know what? I liked the visuals of Sandman, but let me get behind as to why he's doing what he's doing. I personally think that they should have done a little retrofitting with the scenes. For instance, we first see Flint go to his ex-wife, I guess, and daughter's house.
who we never see again.
We never see again.
Or get mentioned again.
Or
for
get
that matter.
mentioned again. Okay, so he first goes to their place, grabs a T-shirt and says, well, I'm going to get the money. It's like, okay, why can't you just get a job? Why do you have to steal? That's never explained. So then all of a sudden he's running from the cops when, I remember seeing the trailer thinking, okay, that's where he breaks out of jail. No, he's just for some reason running at some point somewhere near a fence where there just happens to be this nuclear testing facility.
Or he falls into a pit of sand.
Somehow he survived. But he was changed into a maniacal Sandman.
And this is where
This is more of an in-joke to me and a couple of friends. But the thing is, it would have made more sense to me if, okay, show him breaking out of jail, going into the sand pit, changing into Sandman, then go back to his wife and daughter's house, and he makes a big sand fist and says, I'm going to get the money. I've got I've got a way to do this now. So it kind of freaks his wife out a little bit more. Maybe go back, after the first scene where he does get the money, then he takes it back and says, here, I've got the money. Revisit that so we are reconnected, because if you don't check in with certain things, people forget what's going on. It goes back to the pacing. I feel like they rushed the Green Goblin thing, and I will say I kind of liked the scene with Harry and Mary Jane where they were in the kitchen. It felt a little more real. It felt like there was some real chemistry between those characters.
That I agree with.
And I was like, wow, it had a more realistic approach to it anyway. I mean, you were just sitting there cooking. It really didn't have anything to do with Spider-Man, but I felt like it was a real scene between two people.
Yeah.
Like this was really happening. And while I liked that, I kind of felt like, wow, you really wasted a lot of good things on the Green Goblin. Plus, where do we start? What went wrong with the design of the new Green Goblin? First of all, it didn't look like it was barely green. Second of all, it was a hoverboard, which we still don't have in real life, so they shouldn't have it in Spider-Man. Don't tease us like that. Second of all, why was he not wearing a helmet?
I mean, seriously. If you're flying around...
If you're flying around on a hoverboard, hey, you might get knocked off while fighting Spider-Man and, I don't know, hit your head and get a concussion and have amnesia for a couple weeks, which is what you did. Yeah.
So I don't think you've noticed this before or not, but there are things called flagpoles and, other things that people just hang out their windows.
Yeah, especially when you're flying through the alleyways of New York, like clotheslines.
And if you don't have spider sense, which, by the way, they didn't use once in the third movie.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what took me out early for the movie was, even for the series, which I was giving leeway anyway with, was the fact that Spider-Man in the comics cannot be snuck up upon unless it's certain people.
Yeah.
So the fact that Harry took him by surprise, to me, takes me out of it for a little bit. I guess
I didn't notice that right away.
I mean, it's one of those things where I was able to forgive it a little bit because, okay, there's still plenty of movie to go on. Plus, if Spider-Man is in my head, if he's heavily busy with something, he can ignore the spider sense, so maybe that's what was going on. But still, it was the fact that it wasn't even used or mentioned again in the third movie. But to me, I would say, to sum this up, it felt crowded, this movie, because there were too many people and too many storylines trying to be done at once.
Right, and I think it goes back to this. I mean, it felt crowded, but it was the pacing. Like some of it wasn't fleshed out enough. Some of it was too fleshed out. Like I really feel like the Harry Green Goblin stuff, there was too much of it. You could have taken some of that stuff out. Plus
they killed him.
Yeah.
Why? Stop killing your villains. And Venom they killed.
Yeah.
Which is stupid again.
But like I said, they should have saved Venom for the fourth movie anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really hoping for, I remember when we saw the preview for Spider-Man 3, I was really hoping that for Spider-Man 4, we'd have Venom and Lizard.
Yeah.
Carnage.
And, here's the interesting thing about Spider-Man 3. it was not Sam Raimi's idea to put Venom in the movie. He wanted to have Sandman and Vulture. But guess what? The fans said, oh, we really want Venom. We really want Venom. We really want Venom. So guess what? Sam Raimi put Venom in the movie. You crapped on Venom. Well, you told me to put him in there. Next time, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes against what we've been saying all along for Batman, where fan input isn't important, but in this one, fan input kind of killed it.
But you know what? Fan input also...
It's important, regardless, but...
It's important as long as...
It doesn't run it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it, because while there was a lot of fan input for, certainly Batman Begins the Dark Knight, a lot of what made that movie was successful was the fact that Chris Nolan did not listen to the fans in certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he was a fan of the character in that series and that sort of thing himself, as Sam Raimi was. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Sam Raimi he had done a good job with the first movie. I thought he did a great job with the second movie. But with the third movie, because he was trying to please the fans, because what they're saying, it did hurt.
It did. I think you've been trying to make a point, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
I didn't read too much on what the fans wanted as far as in contrast with the director, but I was just going to give my 2 cents about the third one.
Go ahead.
First off, I like how they did Gwen Stacy.
Okay.
Maybe because I had a good opinion about the actress.
Yeah.
Because I saw her in Lady in the Lake, or whatever it's called, Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water.
Yeah. I thought she did great in that one.
Yeah.
So I liked how she did in this one.
Okay.
Mary Jane, same thing. Man, she was the whole time she was just whining the whole movie. I would have preferred that they just say she went to France to study cooking or something. You know? Honestly, leave a character out entirely if you're going to mess it up. Same thing as Venom. They completely screwed up that character. I mean, first off, Eddie Brock in this, probably in the comic too, but in the animated series that I'm very familiar with,
right,
he has reasons to hate Peter Parker.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Not just because he stepped on his toes. Oh, he got the picture before me. Come on.
That was the thing, is like, they didn't spend enough time with Eddie Brock.
Yeah.
I thought they brought him in the movie early enough, but they really didn't spend enough time developing the character because they tried to rush him to get to Venom for that last act rather than saying, okay, let's flesh him out. You know, why is Eddie, why does he hate Peter? You got to take some time to develop hatred for somebody, especially, I really didn't feel like they were work rivals.
Yeah.
They were there, they had some banter, but not really rivals.
Exactly.
You have to develop that competition.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen the guy interact with Spider-Man once in the whole movie. Just butting heads with Peter, and I think that was twice.
Well, that was the one time where he took his picture. Like, I got your picture, and then he smashes his camera.
Yeah.
Come on, that's it?
Yeah.
That was
it.
I mean...
And the thing is, again, because Venom was one of my favorite villains and I had comic books for it, this is one that I was expecting so much from. And the thing is with Venom, it's because he's an interesting character because it's a person that, career-wise, he was trying to follow Spider-Man. And in the comics, obviously, the thing they couldn't pull for the movie was the fact that, what happened was he was trying to reveal the identity of a serial killer that was in New York at the time. And then he found this one person who was like, oh, I'm this person. I think it was Sin Eater was the name of the serial killer. Mm-hmm. But that person ended up being basically a chronic confessor. We just like to confess things, though he didn't do it. And Spider-Man revealed the true identity of the serial killer. And because Brock was a reporter for the Bugle at the time, like, oh, you trusted a false source, therefore you're fired. And Eddie blamed Spider-Man on all his problems. And the thing is, it's one of those things where a person will focus all their frustration, hatred, and rage on one thing, and they focus on that. And that's what became his driving character and force, was he was focused on Spider-Man. Nothing to do with Peter Parker whatsoever. Yeah. He was focused completely on Spider-Man. And when the black suit came to him,
then he discovered the identity.
It told him, because it speaks to him, who Spider-Man is. And he was able to gain this thing. And because Eddie Brock is not superpowered himself, he has to rely on becoming physically at his peak. He has to be muscular and large and as strong as he physically can in order for the symbiote to enhance his own natural strength, therefore giving him superior strength.
Right.
Plus giving him spider-like powers.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where even if they couldn't include the Sin Eater serial killer storyline in the movie, but they could have at least done a better job of developing the character.
Oh yeah, I agree.
You know, so it just felt like it went from one thing to the other far too fast.
Yeah, it did. Like I said, the pacing was off. You know, I that's what I enjoyed about the first two movies. They were well paced.
Mm-hmm.
Each story arc was well developed in the first two.
Mm-hmm.
You felt like each character that came, even for instance, even with Green Goblin and Doc Ock, even though those characters died, you felt like there was a reasonable amount of character development. You felt like there was enough screen time. You didn't feel like it was rushed.
Right.
So I would say that it kind of in the same vein of, I guess, my consensus of the first Batman movie. The scenes were good, but the overall storyline was lacking.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was just an action flick. It almost seemed like they didn't try any story. All they carried over was the drama that Mary Jane was showing in the second one, honestly. That's the only connection that I really saw there.
I'm not going to disagree with you completely on that.
Yeah.
Same thing. Venom, he's supposed to be bigger.
I guess because I was able to see what they were trying to do.
They screwed up the suit. I thought the suit was supposed to be more liquid. They made it much more web-like. His mouth, even that they screwed up. His tongue was supposed to be hanging all over the place, and he's supposed to be, I really thought,
talking like this.
No, he's supposed
Well,
to be more.
he's supposed to be more frightening looking. But the thing is, I mean, on one hand, I can at least be okay with the suit looking different. Because again, I'm okay with changes to
it's live action.
from one thing to the other. I'm okay with that. But it's when, like, for the most part, even when you want to see the scary Venom face, it grows back into his other face.
Yeah.
Where it's like, one of the common complaints we heard from other people for the Spider-Man movies was, "Hey, Spider-Man, keep your mask on." You know,
Yeah.
I know you're Tobey Maguire and all, but you're Spider-Man. Keep your mask on. Stop taking it off every 5 seconds. You know?
Yeah. It is difficult to watch like I said, because that goes back to that image. People, it's Spider-Man. You don't need to see the person underneath to get the emotion and what's in the acting. Right. When he's Spider-Man, you don't have to have the dialogue. Dialogue, because it's usually comedy, makes it fun. But it's the movements and everything he does.
Mm-hmm. So with Venom, it's like you want him to have the alien over his face and talking, because that's more terrifying. That's more a representation of that character. And it didn't. It just kept revealing their face.
Even the voice, for me, the voice was kind of wimpy, even when trying to sound creepy or scary or something.
I don't remember that much.
I mean, the thing is, no offense to the actor who played him, because he was obviously a fan.
Yeah.
That's why he was there, but it's like, he just was not the right guy for the role.
Yeah.
No. I mean, what was it? Topher Grace, the guy from That 70s Show.
Yeah.
And the thing is, growing up seeing him in That 70s Show, and I remember hearing that he was cast as Eddie Brock, and thinking, okay, I don't know much about Eddie Brock, but I know Venom's a big guy. I'm not really seeing this, but all right,
and that's even for you, who's not an avid fan.
I did think that at least when he was Venom, he was bigger than when he was Eddie.
Not by much.
Well, they did what they could. But
one more thing,
and the whole team up with him and Sandman just felt
forced.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to touch up on. I thought they crapped on the black suit. All they did was keep the web-looking one and put black over it. Here you go.
Now, I will say this
much.
We
finished it.
I like certain aspects of that. I like the fact that they kept the webbing but made it a little different, a little darker tone. Mm-hmm. Because to me it showed, like, one thing I did not like about the original black suit from the comics was I felt like, okay, if this is supposed to take on the appearance of his costume but make it black and make it different, it's like I should be seeing at least some elements.
Yeah.
And granted, with the original black suit, I was only seeing the eyes and a different spider. And to me, it didn't feel similar enough. So I liked, to at least an extent, what they did with the black suit.
Nah, to me, it seemed like they kept the same exact one. They just changed the color.
But see, I guess because I was really not aware of the whole storyline of the black suit to begin with.
See, like the black suit, for example, that's supposed to give him organic webbing, so they couldn't do that because he already had organic one.
I mean, again,
a lot of this stuff, see, that's the thing. A lot of this stuff I didn't know going into Spider-Man 3.
That I'm willing to overlook. He's supposed to have like the white, little nice white patches on the back of his wrist.
But again, in that context, that's not going to work either for this movie. But
no, that wasn't doing anything. That was just
perhaps for Eddie it was,
Yeah, that was just appearance-wise. The spider on his back was supposed to look different, and just the whole suit overall.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was very disappointed with the black suit.
Yeah. But like I said, going into this, I didn't know anything about the black suit or Venom.
Like I said, that's the episode. That's the episode I've seen the most. So
yeah. See, with me, I knew of Venom, the character, in terms of what he looked like. That was it.
Yeah.
Well, plus, as I mentioned earlier, how Venom is almost chameleon-like, where the suit can change.
Yeah.
I mean, it was even in the animated series where if Peter Parker was wearing it and he wanted a different set of clothes, he just had to think it, and it made it the clothes.
Oh.
You know, and that worked for Eddie too. So the fact that it was just basically flowed over his old Spider-Man suit and just looked like that and did nothing else, kind of took away from the fact that that wasn't really supposed to be. You know?
Yeah, I guess when you know these things, you have a different critique.
It's true. I mean, the thing is, like, yes, they're making a movie for mainstream audiences, but your hardcore Spider-Man fans are going to go too.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you can't please everyone. I understand that.
Make some changes, but like the black suit Spider-Man custom I want to work on, it will be a combination of the comic book and the movie design, which
Like
actually
I said, I'm willing to meet halfway.
Yeah.
Like I said,
well, like the black
the
suit
green-
that they did
yeah.
for the Spectacular Spider-Man actually had the web design still in the costume. It was done as a gray, and it was harder to see, and then they had a larger white spider.
Mhm.
But so they kind of did a marrying of the two.
Yeah, like I said, I'm willing to meet halfway, just like I would have been willing on the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
But it just seemed to me like they didn't try. But what I did like towards the end, probably my favorite part about 3, how Harry matures after he gets burned on the face.
Yeah.
And he kind of tries to repent and
I
make up his
would agree.
mistakes. That part, that's what
I
liked
did
about the
actually
3.
kind of like the
The more mature, serious.
what's the word I'm looking?
yeah.
The reconciliation between Harry and Peter. That was at least fulfilling, because if you watch all 3 movies kind of in a row, you do at least feel like between Harry and Peter, there was this, they had this brother relationship in the first one. They had a falling out in the second one. They had a reconnection and a reconciliation in the third one.
Mm-hmm.
That was at least tied together, and that at least worked.
Yeah, that really worked
So-
for me. That's what I like the most about this one.
You know who Harry should have been blaming all his problems on? His butler. Why? He could have saved him a lot of trouble.
Yes, and you can see this reenacted on How It Should Have Ended on YouTube, where they do How Spider-Man 3 Should Have Ended,
Yeah.
where they talk about, they have Harry be like, why didn't you tell me this years ago?
You know, I was going into alcoholism. I got smashed in the head. Come on, man. It's going to be a lot of grief if you had told me.
So in the end, the butler did it.
I know. Or failed to do it, this one.
Since you mentioned how it should have ended, I remember that they mention they do like alternate take on when Sandman's born.
I think so.
When they turn on the thing
Uh-huh.
for the sand particle,
Yeah.
they go, "Hey, the sensor is detecting something." And in the original movie, they say,
Right.
"Oh, it's like a bird or something. It'll go away once you turn it on." And
Right.
in this one, they go, "Did we spend millions of dollars on this? Let's go remove it so we don't screw this up." I think that's what they do. I don't remember, So, it's stuff that makes
I guess
sense.
the better question is there, if it's a bird, how does a bird get in there? Why are we letting birds in here? We got a multi-million-dollar operation here, and you're letting birds in here?
And wait, one bird will screw up a multi-million-dollar operation? What's wrong with us? What are we throwing money at sand for, by the way? Are we making a giant sandbox for giant cats? Is that our project in the future? If we have giant cats, it needs somewhere to go, so let's do that first. We're making the lol cat for the future. The future!
You can tell Andrew's a cat fan.
I'm just a fan of...
And I think we've hit that stupid o'clock.
Yes, we have. That's okay. But in all honesty, I am looking forward to seeing what they do for the new Spider-Man movie.
I am
I'll go.
looking forward
I'm
to
going
it.
to go see it.
Yeah, me too.
I definitely need to go look at these...
As soon as they find out who the villain is, there's talks of a proto-goblin. I'm not sure what that means or if that's even confirmed.
I don't even
Like
know
I
what
said-
a proto-goblin is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either.
Me neither. I'll be honest.
I've never heard of that. Maybe it's supposed
like
to be
I
like,
said-
oh, we're not calling it Hobgoblin, and we're not going to call it Green Goblin. So Proto-Goblin, because it's a prototype goblin. Yeah.
That's about as much as I can go with. I do know that they have, like I said, they're going to have Kurt Connors in it, and Martin Sheen will play Uncle Ben. So,
Alright.
it's a...
Wow, so it's that early?
Yeah.
So what, we're gonna see
It's
another
basically a
rebirth
reboot.
of Spider-Man?
Yeah,
I know
pretty much.
I know it's a reboot, but are we gonna see Spider-Man be born again? Or
Probably.
okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, if they're taking it all the way back to like early, they're really taking it in a whole new direction. They're saying, okay, Spider-Man is
Are
a
we seeing-
teenager.
Are we gonna? No, actually no.
So
I was gonna ask if we're seeing Peter's parents, but
I don't know.
No,
'Cause
because
I know-
he was orphaned as a
It
child.
could do.
As a
They
child,
could
okay.
do that as flashbacks, I suppose.
yeah, because I know
But-
they were saying that there were secret agents and they got killed or something. You remember that?
Yeah, in the animated series.
They touch up on
They
that.
touch on that in the comic books too.
But they'd have to bring in S.H.I.E.L.D. for that, so yeah, I guess that's not happening.
Yeah,
Not necessarily.
you never know.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Well, that's how they connected it in the cartoon.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Either way, I'm willing to give it a fair chance, and I'm also willing to, give it a fair chance if they choose to do different interpretations of different things. Like obviously, we said they're going to try it with web shooters this time around, so it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate
And
that.
the suit does look somewhat different. Like I said, it looks like something that he bought off the shelf and spray painted, which to me is perfect because you know what? No offense. The costumes in all three movies I thought were really good. Spider-Man's costume was too good. If you're a college student who can barely afford to pay your rent, how is it possible you can afford space-age Lycra and this material and like Ray-Ban lenses for your eyes? No, I'm sorry. The costume was too good. It looked too good for what Spider-Man could do. The costume that I made for Spider-Man...
I will say this, though, not to cut you off, but this is one thing I really liked about that little thing to the costume where he's doing his laundry. And he has his suit in, and he stained all his clothes like red.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good nod to it.
So, just so everyone's clear, do not put darks with colors when you're doing laundry.
Or colors with whites.
Yeah.
Unless you want to stain it different colors.
To be honest, I like how the suit's looking for the third one. At first, I thought, man, this looks like crap. But you know what? Now I like it. I like how the colors are looking. I haven't seen the webbing texture so much, only on the arms, I think.
Yeah, it's not much. It's not as much as it was. It's not as detailed as it was for the earlier ones.
But I
kind of like that.
Yeah, I wanted to...
Because like I said, there were complaints of like, his feet look like they have shoes, but it's like, he bought them. I have no doubt that he bought whatever suit this is that he is turning into his Spider-Man suit. So it's not like he's going to change it much.
Well, it's sort of like in Kick-Ass where he got like a store-bought, like, what was it? It
was a wetsuit.
Wetsuit.
Yeah, so...
Although I do like in Kick-Ass, with no powers comes no responsibility.
Yes. But at any rate, I'm looking forward to seeing the direction they take of this new Spider-Man series. I was, however, looking forward to seeing what direction they were going to try to go with the original Spider-Man 4. I know that they were going to bring in the Vulture and the Lizard, but we'll never know.
We'll never know. It's
So-
a shame. Oh, well.
But like I said before, with the last name of Webb, you really can't go wrong with the director.
So we hope. So we hope.
So we hope.
Yeah, let's hope that he's going to keep going with his vision and not necessarily try to do what the fans want.
Yes. As long as he is a fan and he takes those, like I said before, what makes a good interpretation of the character and what we all enjoy is taking those core aspects of the character, whether it's Batman, Superman, or Spider-Man in this case, and really updating it for the times, presenting it to a modern audience, but keeping those core elements the same.
Staying true to the character.
Staying true to the character. Yeah. And that goes for the hero, his villains, all the sideline characters. So I'm hoping they'll do a good job with it. If not, you can always watch The Death of Spider-Man on YouTube.
Ah, yes.
Via my channel, or as it's linked on Freakout Entertainment, where you can witness a Lego Spider-Man having a warrior's funeral pyre.
And being sung to.
Oh, I watched that.
By
Spider-Man, Spider-Man. I remember that.
No longer looking like Spider-Man.
But I wanted to say before we tie it up that, also keep an eye out for the new Spider-Man video game that's been announced.
The Edge of Time, right?
Yeah, The Edge of Time. It's supposed to be the sort of thing where you do things now and it has consequences in the future. They're doing
if you do things now and it has consequences in the past, that's kind of weird.
I don't even think Doc Brown can figure that one out.
They're doing like picture-in-picture, which apparently hasn't been done for a game before. The animation and a lot of things are looking the same as the 2008 version, which I'm kind of disappointed with, but I've only seen the first view on it. So until I see the final product...
I'm sure there's a reason it looks the same.
Well, they're supposed to update some of the stuff,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, depending upon what maybe they've added new features, maybe they've done something different, I don't know.
Either way, I really think it's worth
maybe
giving
they're
a
just
shot
kind of
to.
like, hey, whatever doesn't, whatever's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, the first one didn't sell too well. It really didn't. So
Although I don't think that was based on the look, though, because it looked great to me.
Yeah. Just the overall feel of the game, hopefully they'll do a good job on it, because I'm really impressed with the first one. I mean, considering how they did with the previous Spider-Man games, like we said, he'd be web slinging in clouds, That wasn't very...
Yeah,
That wasn't very true to form, but it's okay.
It's all good, guys. Anyway, stay tuned for next time. I have no idea what we'll be talking about, but anyway, awesomeness.
Excelsior!
Excelsior.
The content of the Freakacast is copyright to Andrew Felson and Matthew Puetz. All characters belong to their respective owners. A full list of music used will be provided on the website. This podcast is for entertainment use only. Copyright 2011.